morning and welcome. I call this meeting in order. Let us start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Commissioner McConkey to lead us. Please arise.
Please stand, face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So does that put that?
It is the year 2019, and I'm just going to ask one thing from the beginning of the year. For those of you who know the tradition, I would like to ask kindly to take your cell phones, pagers, and pacemakers and put them on silent. So we have the spirit of the meetings. And if you have to take the phone, please take it outside. And with this time, I would like to invite the Mayor Lidwig to come forward and welcome to the beautiful city or the county.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Move this aside just a slit bit. Thank you so much for having me this morning. Put on my old lady glasses so I can read something. So first, I'd like to just welcome you all to Salt Lake County. It's a pleasure to have you here. We take great pride in our facilities and in our county, and the great work and partnership we have with you is critical to all of our success. So thank you so much for being here today. I would like to acknowledge Megan Holbrook, although she's not quite here yet. Her service as commissioner representing Salt Lake, Summit, and Tooele counties since April of 2007. Thank you for UDOT's continued partnership with Salt Lake County. I'd like to thank some specific people, specifically Chip Mason Hill for serving on the 7200 West study to lend your expertise. The needs assessment, preliminary design, and cost estimate phase of the project are now complete. We hope to re-engage you in this project moving forward. Thank you to Troy Peterson as one of our consulting partners for providing important project details that guided our decision making in funding allocation for our new Transportation Choice Fund, or the Fourth Quarter Fund. We are grateful for the continued coordination on projects funded by the Utah Legislature, such as new road construction at 2550 South from 5600 West to 8000 West, and the establishment of the Salt Lake County Parking Facilities Revolving Loan Fund facilitated by SB 128, and a loan from the State Infrastructure Bank. As a collaborative partner for the county's active transportation implementation plan in building out a safe, connected bicycle network county-wide, we are grateful UDOT has included Salt Lake County in specific discussions around active transportation facilities on state routes such as 5600 West. Thank you to Brian Allen and Chip Mason Hill from UDOT Region 2 for your quarterly meetings and taking the time to meet with our county engineers, planners, and transportation program manager. Thank you also for the solid partnership with UDOT Planning, Jeff Harris and Jordan Backman, in working to plan for improvements to the regional transportation infrastructure, as well as coordinating funding opportunities. We look forward to our continued partnership with UDOT leadership, Carlos Braceras, Executive Director, Jason Davis, Deputy Director of Engineering and Operations, and Terry Newell, Deputy Director of Planning and Investment, as well as the Region 2 Director, Brian Adams, and Lisa Wilson, Deputy Director. We'd like to also thank Linda Toy Hull, who works alongside us on policy and legislative issues. These partnerships are critical to all of our success, and we really enjoy and appreciate the engagement of your agency with us as we continue to make sure our community moves in a seamless, hopefully environmentally friendly way. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Let's see, the live broadcast of this event can be viewed on youtube.com/UtahDOT. I'm pretty sure thousands of people anxiously waiting to start in the leaders meeting. Let us start the meeting with the introduction. I start for Donna. From your side, please.
Hi, I'm Donna Law. I'm a commissioner at large, and my home is in Cedar City, Utah.
I'm Danny McConkey. I'm a commissioner at large. A real large one as it is, much to my joy. live in St. George.
Megan Holbrook, Region 2, Salt Lake, Summit, and Tooele.
Wayne Barlow, Region 1, which is the 6th northernmost county of the state.
Lou Kramer, Commissioner at Large and a proud citizen of Salt Lake County, and delighted about this relationship. I do a lot of traveling outside the state, and the coordination among counties, and it's a marvelous thing to see, and keep it up. Thank you so much. And I miss Mayor McAdams.
Jim Evans from Region 3, and that's kind of the center swath of the state from east to west, and I also live in Orem and just happy to be a part of this commission. Thank you today for hosting this here.
And my name is Nagi Zinati from sunny and warm St. George, and I represent the Region 4, which is the 14 remaining county in the States. Carlos, would you please introduce UDOT family?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carlos Braceras, Executive Director of the Utah Department of Transportation. Chairman, would you like us to go through the entire...
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll do this quickly. Terry, start with you, Jason, and then we'll come over this way and we'll do our back and forth, guys.
Terry Newell, Deputy Director, Planning and Investment.
Jason Davis, Deputy Director of Engineering and Operations.
Okay, guys. No problem. Ivan. John?
Mm-hmm.
Charles? Rick? Joe? Joe? This is better than that.
Did we get everyone?
I think so.
Thank you. We have a large family, as you can see. Thank you for being here this morning. And we also would like to recognize and acknowledge our federal partners, Ivan Marrero and Brigitte Mandel. Welcome and good morning. Let's start with the public comments. At this time, I would like to invite all the legislators or the representatives, mayors, to come forward. Please state your name and your position and state your concerns or questions. Who's the brave one to come first?
Thank you.
I'm Kyle Anderson from the House of Representatives. I'm in District 7, and I'm just here to observe particularly the right-of-way procedure and the corridor preservation.
That costs extra money, the observation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jen Daly Provo, newly elected state representative for House District 24, and just here to learn and figure out how all the pieces fit together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome, and thank you for your service. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, some of the action items, you might want to see if there's items that people are here for. I want to speak to that.
Okay, we're proceeding with item number 4. Oh, sorry, item number 3, FHW. So, it's a 2019, Ivan. You will have the good news for us, right? Some good money.
Yeah, I hope I have a couple of good news items for you guys today. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you again for having me here today, give you the Federal Highway Report. First, good news: we are not shut down. We, we are one of those agencies who are fortunate enough that we have a different funding stream, so we are not subject to the those budget battles they have in Congress. So it does make for a very calm and non-stressful time for us at Federal Highways. But we do think about our other employees who are there suffering. So hopefully we'll get this budget issue resolved soon. I do have a couple items for the commission this morning. Let me first start with item related to the NEPA assignment audit. As you know, since 2017, UDOT has assumed environmental responsibilities under the NEPA, under NEPA. And one of the things that comes along with that responsibility is that for the first 4 years, there are audits performed on UDOT to make sure that they are complying with the agreements of the Memorandum of Understanding and all the NEPA requirements. So last week we got the draft report, and the audit was conducted last year, and so we got in June of last year, and we got the report, the draft report. We shared that with UDOT. They looked at 23 projects that were at different stages. Well, projects where the environmental process had been completed for last year, and they have. I'm happy to report they've concluded that UDOT is complying with the commitments of the MOU and with the requirements of NEPA. So there really weren't any significant findings. So once we hear back from get UDOT's comment on that report, it will then go and be printed in the Federal Register for public comment. So that's those were great news, and we expected UDOT to not have any issues with NEPA anyway. They have an excellent program in place. We did have one trigger. There's something called the older driver and pedestrian special rule, which basically addresses accident rates for pedestrians and older people. Apparently 65 is the age where somebody's considered an older driver or pedestrian. So if what the requirement is if over a 2-year period there's an increase in the rates of serious injuries or fatality, then a state is required to incorporate address that issue in their highway safety plan. So Utah was one of the 15 states nationwide that triggered that special rule. So the requirement is now that they incorporate things into their highway safety plan to address the increase in pedestrian and older drivers' injuries and fatalities. So we've already checked, and apparently the strategic highway safety plan for Utah already incorporates those things. So we should be okay. Shouldn't be don't anticipate any major changes needed on the strategic highway safety plan. We have two grants that are available for states to apply to. There's the 2019 infra, or let me make sure I get this right. What is infra? I did not write what infra stands for. Anyway, the infra grant is available for states to apply for. This is the one where we have about $900 million available for states. Last year, UDOT was successful in getting a $25 million infra grant for the Northwest Quadrant Freight Mobility Project. So the deadline for applying for that grant is March 4th. The second grant that was announced is the Automated Driving Systems Demonstration Grant, and that one, the nationwide, there's $60 million available for the states, and that's to promote automated vehicle research and technology and safety. So again, that grant is out there, and the application date is March 21st. We came up with our, as I mentioned earlier, there is a rescission that's going to come into play at the end of 2019. So one of the things that Federal Highway has been doing is making states aware of what amount of dollar they would be subject to rescission in each state. So we came up with a new estimate for the states. For Utah, that estimate is around $52 million. It's a little lower than we have previously estimated, so that's kind of good news. But it allows the division of the states to kind of know how much money we're talking about and maybe come up with some strategy to try to make sure that the programs that we think are more critical are not as impacted as much as other programs. So our office has been working with UDOT to kind of come up with a strategy to minimize the impact to the state of Utah. We did, speaking of money, also what happened is once our appropriations lapsed in December 21st. We were under continuing resolution. That lapsed. So what that means is now that we were able to grant obligation limitation for the whole year. We have been handing out obligation limitation in pieces based on what Congress, the continuing resolution that Congress passed, because that lapsed on December 21st and we didn't get any other CR. Then we have issued the full year's obligation limitation to the states. So that amounts to around $331 million for the state of Utah. We have warned the states that even though they have the full obligation limitation, once Congress gets around to passing other appropriation bills, they could issue additional obligation limitations. So we're cautioning the states to not go ahead and spend it all. Kind of look at the historical pattern of limitations and budget their program accordingly. So it's kind of like we put all those fish in the pond, but we're telling you that we may be issuing limits on catch limits later on, which may require you to put those fish back, even though they may be dead, or I don't know. So that's kind of, if I could explain it. So to go back to my fish example. So, but we've been having a lot of good meetings with UDOT's financial side, and we're making sure that we keep that in mind as we spend the money, so we don't get to the point where we have to return money to the federal government. So. And finally, I just wanted to touch on this table here. We get quarterly updates on our financial management dashboard, which kind of shows just nationwide how the different states are doing when it comes to basically keeping the money moving in the program. So what this shows is for this last quarter. This is from the first quarter in 2019. So this is October, November, and December of last year. The second box, you see that 95.45%. That's how quickly UDOT is able to get projects moving, to put funds on projects. So basically it says that 95% of your projects have been, money has started to be spent on those projects before the 9-month period. I'm sure that you do it even quicker than that. So that's really good. The national average is around 87, so we're above the national average. The third box to the right with a G, the inactive obligations, that indicates that funds, once a project gets going, funds are being spent, and the project is not just sitting there inactive. So it shows that in the state of Utah, we only have 0.23% of the funds not being, or projects not being, where the funds are not being spent in a timely manner. So it shows that, again, the projects are moving. And then the last box is the how quickly we close those projects. Once a project gets to, it says less than 10% of funds unexpended, how quickly do we close that project? So it shows that once a project gets close to being finished, it gets finished and closed in time. So we've only had 0.88%, which compared to the national average of 9% is really amazing. So again, they are always great numbers. Our office and UDOT's office, they meet regularly to kind of stay on top of these numbers and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. In the end, we just want to make sure that the dollars are being spent and put to good use. So again, we're doing an excellent job here in Utah. So I want to thank UDOT for doing such a great job. So that's all I had for you this morning. I'll be glad to answer. I had a lot of items on my agenda today. I apologize for that, but when first time of the year and everybody's got stuff coming out. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
I have one question, Ivan. Compared to last quarter 2018, fire index being good and then R, which is not passing expectation. So what caused that?
I'm sorry, the
fire index.
The fire index. Oh, that red. That's actually that doesn't have anything to do with you. That's an indication of our office and whether or not we have incorporated all the required federal actions into our unit plan. So that's a bet on my end, not your end. So.
Oh, that's your.
Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner.
I just want to make sure that you mentioned that that's not the UDOT.
I was trying to figure out how to cut that out of there, but I couldn't. So.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Donna, please.
Just perhaps as a reminder, since Ivan's gone through all of these dollars, what % of our overall budget comes federally?
Yeah, so last year the FY19 appropriated budget was $1.7 billion. 22% of that is the federal funds that we receive.
Okay, thank you.
And that is very low compared to other states. Other states, I mean, the federal program is in the 80, 90%. So it's.
Is that why you have an R?
No, that should be green. That should be flashing green. I don't know what happened there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
I just want to make a connection here. The prompt closeout number, the motivation for us and, I think for the commission to see a good number there is when you see one of the first action items you have in your agenda every month is that de-obligating money off a project. So so the faster we can close a project, sometimes those are difficult. That means we're taking care of all of the right-of-way and utility needs that, you could see the physical work on a project be done, but there's a lot of issues taking place behind the scenes. But we're motivated to move that money off and give it back to the commission to put it back to work. And so that's the motivation. That's why we like to see that low, is to give that money back to you.
Any more questions from Ivans? Thank you. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Scoreboard. Chris Peterson and Rob White. Let's see.
Mr. Chair, thank you for letting me stand before you in a different role today, and you're probably going to see a little bit of that through the course of the meeting. It might be a theme as I present to you, and then Rob is going to present, Lisa is going to present. There's a few different folks in a few different roles today. So,
and maybe Chris, Commissioners, we put a little booklet in front of you.
Yes, very good.
We've been using this as we've been working with new members of the legislature, but in the middle we have pictures with, and so you might get a sense of where the new roles that people are in. That might be helpful. Sorry,
Very
Chris.
helpful. Good-looking group here, and you look a little bit more relaxed, Chris, than 2 months ago.
We'll see how that goes in the next couple minutes. See if I can keep that. Yeah, I won't go any further. I'm excited to present to you today the status of the projects that we are planning on advertising or advertising and are under construction for the project that you have approved. And so that's what I'd like to report on today. You'll notice is, I got it. All right. The trackpad works different than my computer, so I had to figure that out. You'll notice that we have 14 projects that are ready to advertise within 60 days of today. 5 projects are past due, and we're working with the project teams. They're actively working to get their projects back on schedule. 3 of those are local government projects. 2 of those are UDOT projects. We have 260 projects that we're working on out into the future. Those could be 5 years out into the future. So those are projects that you've approved for us. that we expect to advertise. That's a lot of work from your standpoint to get us to a point that we have the projects in the direction that you'd like us to go. We have 310 no committed advertisement date projects. I want to point that out, and we're working to address this and fix this because it's a little bit, if you read this chart, it can be a little misleading in that might say that we have 310 projects that we're not working on or we have a data quality issue with. Many of those projects, and probably more than 80% of those projects, are projects that you have approved but they will not advertise, and we're working on them, such as the Cottonwood Canyon study. So if there's a study, an environmental study, they will not advertise and go to construction. And so those are lumped into that number. And so we're working on revising this graph to make it a little bit more clear. But we want you to know that there's a lot of projects that you've approved. Many of them will go to construction in a typical manner. Many of them won't, and we're still working on them, and we want to report on all those for you. Another example of a project that won't go to construction that you've approved may be a traffic signal project, where it will, but not through the traditional construction process. It's through our procurement process, and it's not reflected here. And so we're working to make that a little bit more clear. Did you have a question? Okay. So the advertising performance, and this set of numbers is the ones that I'm extremely proud of. As a region director, I was extremely proud, and just to be associated with the region is in the good work that they're doing. We are 92% on time advertising our projects, and if you look back up, out of all of the projects that we have only 5 past due, and that's reflected in that 92% number. And the regions are really accomplishing a significant amount of work, and they're on time, and they're doing their best to meet those goals. Okay, next I'd like to talk to you about cost estimates for projects. Over the past month, if you look through this is an extensive list of projects that we have advertised over the past month. And I want to point out for Commissioner Kramer, that red one on the top is a rounding issue, and so we're talking dollars versus pennies on a project, and you ask us to. This is a little data quality issue where we're trying to sort through on project value versus commission approved amount, the column on the left of that red square. What this really tells us is make sure that we are not going forward with any projects above and beyond what you have approved us to do. And so the fact that that is red indicates that our estimate is higher than the project value, but in no case is it greater than the commission approved amount. Chris, so. Okay, so it's a very, I can't explain exactly the difference between project value and commission approved amount, but the project team will set a value for the project, and then there are times when we think it's just cheaper in the very initial setup stage than what the commission approved. And so we will work off of multiple columns to make sure we're managing the project most effectively. And so we'll have a project value. The commission may approve a certain amount. There are also times when we'll make administrative adjustments to the project value into the commission approved amount based on the authority that you've given the Ivan's office and Terry's office. And so those two help us manage the budget. The cost estimate is the value of the construction cost added to our pre-construction costs, utility costs, and all the expected costs. And we will run a very detailed estimate as compared to a larger, more big picture estimate when we try to establish a project value or and come to you for a commission approved amount. And so that one red one is indicative of it's a data quality issue, and we need to have our project manager go clean that up. In no case will we proceed above the amount that you've authorized us to go to, but that's what that is. You will notice that there is a yellow project on here. This yellow indicates that we advertised later than we thought we would, and later than we had committed to. There's a second one, and you'll notice that the SR10 project is a project that's on the agenda today for your consideration. And so these are two projects that were a little bit later. And if you look closely at the SR14 project, it was anticipated to go to bid in December of 18, and it went to bid in January of 18. So we were a little late, which is not our goal. However, it's not significant, and the project teams on occasion they run into some difficulties right towards the end of their project, and sometimes we do miss our dates a little bit. My understanding is that project manager doesn't work for us anymore. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, that's not the case. This is a chart that demonstrates to you we track very closely our projects and our advertising status and our schedules. A red tip on a green, so green is good, red is not so good, and black is bad. So red is a project that's advertised late, but we did get it advertised. This is reflected also in the 92%, so we're still meeting our goals and our targets. Black is a project that was supposed to advertise but has not yet. And so those are projects that the project managers are working through issues that they come up. They could be a utility issue, it could be a right-of-way issue, it could be a coordination issue, it could be an issue that they're having with estimates, and they're trying to rescope a project so that they can meet their obligations and still meet our commitment to you to meet our budget. Future projects to advertise are in purple and in blue on the right-hand side. Blue is a project that is underway, and they have set a date and they know that they're going to advertise. Scoping is a project that's a little bit further out, and they're still trying to make sure that they have the scope of the project defined so that they can begin the process to get ready for advertisement. Any questions on this chart? We're working on making this a little bit clearer. There's too many colors here, and so we're going to revise this chart to make it just a little bit more self-explanatory. Commissioner?
Has there been any time, one of those bad projects, that you couldn't resolve the issues that we just could be tabled for the future?
Those have occurred. For instance, if there's a project, a sidewalk project is one that's most typically that's the case, where we would go out and we find out we just cannot afford that project. We can't afford to do it. If so, then we would abandon the project and we would turn back the money back to the commission, and we would go forward. So it doesn't happen very often, but there are times when we find out that the project we intended to do, we just can't do for what that is, for what we've estimated.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I just say, I was at a briefing yesterday about construction costs going up in the country with tariffs, and it was just amazing that we're able to do what we do with the cost overruns that we keep seeing in the general construction world. So congratulations on that. It's a tough environment out there right now with labor shortages, material cost overrides, and everything else. So
absolutely, we build some of that risk into our contracts so that we can address that if it does happen. But what I will tell you is we have a great community, and by community I mean our staff and our consultants that help us deliver the program, as well as our contractors. And we have some of the best contractors in the nation, and some of the best relationships with our contractors, where we can be open and we can address our issues as they come or before they come, so that we can address them properly. So I want to give the credit where it really lies, and that's where the folks that are doing the hard work, they work very hard to control our costs and to keep our projects on schedule, on budget.
well, congratulations on that. Asphalt was one of the big jumps in pricing that we were seeing, along with steel and, of course, the other things that impact construction industry generally. So congratulations.
Thank you. To date, right now, if you look on the very far right of this column, we have 141 projects under contract. And then if you'll reflect the red and the blue portions of the bar, blue is amount that we have yet to pay on those contracts, and the red is amount that we have paid out on those contracts. This fluctuates with the number of contracts that we have and the time of the season. It's also reflected in some of our very large contracts are in here as compared to some of the small. Everything's in here, and it kind of gives us an idea of what our obligations are and what we have underway. So I like this chart. It helps us keep our big picture focus on where we stand. This is also this is kind of a fun chart to recognize the amount of money that you have authorized us to spend, and we spend on average about $3 million a month in the summer, and we drop down to about $1 million a month per day. Sorry, excuse me, I got to correct that. To contractor payments. It's a significant program, and we have a lot of folks that help us keep on track of that, and it's important timely payments to our contractors so that they can give us good, fair prices. If we lag on our payments to them and we don't pay them timely, we factor that into their financial strategies, and we don't get as good a pricing. And so I think the way we're set up right now, we pay within 3 days of the date that we that we cut off and agree to pay. So our comptroller does a great job of making timely payments to the contractors.
Chris, is this typically the way this chart looks year to year?
It is. It is.
November's always got a spike in it?
Yeah, November, the big month for paving is October, and usually we are about 1 month behind on that payment. Now, I talked, it takes a month to add that all up and get that all sorted out and agree with the contractor that's what we owe, and then we'll pay within 3 days once we agree. But that's the big time of the year for sure.
But you'll see it'll be dependent on, time of year, but also the actual weather we're experiencing.
Right.
And have a big impact on it.
Yeah. If you recall, Randy gave me a significant challenge as he presented to you last December and told me that I need to fix this chart. So we will work on that, and in doing so. We do love charts that show significant amount of green, but this has looked this way for the past 8 years. And so what we'd like to do is we're going to work on putting together a chart that's a little bit more self-explanatory in what we're trying to tell you. What we want to tell you with this chart is that our projects are on schedule, we're on time, and that it's what kind of risks we might have of cost escalation or cost risk or cost growth on it. And that's what we're trying to tell you with this chart, that we don't have issues right now in our projects, and that we have them all under control, and we know where we are. So I guess that's good enough, right? Is we have a good handle on that. We have 64 projects. We have 1 project that's in the red, where we have, and all this says is that our payments are not matching up with schedule, which is not necessarily a problem. So our project may be 100 days, 100 days in duration. We may be at day 50, but we paid 75% of the contract. That's not necessarily bad. It depends on the type of contract, the type of work that we're doing, and that's why this chart is a little bit confusing, because it doesn't accurately represent what we're trying to portray. So we'll see if we can have that for you in February. That's the challenge with our folks. And this chart is basically, if you look at that, yellow is what our estimate was for projects that we've advertised. Blue is what our bids came in at. This chart basically tells me that our contractors' bids are what we thought we should get from them. It means our estimators are doing a good job and our engineers are doing a good job putting together plan sets that are biddable with low risk to the contractors, and that we are on the same page as what the project really is. And so this is a pretty good representation that unified we're doing a good job as a team in putting our program out. Are there any questions that you have? As I work to make this a little bit better for you, if there are things that you would like to see or not like to see in this presentation, please let me know. This is intended to be an update for you and help you know where we sit and what our status is. And so if there's anything you'd want me to change or add or take out, I'd be happy to do that if you just let me know. Thank you.
Very comprehensive.
Thank you, Chris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's good to be with you this morning. Here to give the Zero Fatalities performance measures. Let's get to the right tab here.
Rob, introduce yourself again.
Okay, I'm Rob White, the Director of Operations for a whole month now, a little over a month.
Congratulations.
So brand new. This is my first time giving this presentation, but I will say that zero fatalities and safety has been something that I have been concerned about my entire career here at UDOT, and realize the importance that zero fatalities has to our department and to everybody in our state. Quickly, I will look at our safety index, although as we know with market indexes, as we look at the stock market, they really don't mean anything in and of themselves, but we look at trends and the purpose that we have trends. And as you see, it's gone down a little bit over the last several months. Let me scoot down here. But overall, we're quite a bit higher than we were about a year ago. The good news that I want to bring to you today is our traffic fatalities from last year. And if you look at what our actuals are, it's 264 fatalities. Our projected reduction target was 270, and so we've done much better are better than our projected target. There's still lots of work to do. I don't say this is a celebration. The numbers are good, they're better, they're trending in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to do. Anytime you're looking at so many factors that affect this, it's difficult at times to make a difference on this, but I think any efforts that we can do, the primary seatbelt law, our zero fatalities education campaigns, Don't Drive Stupid, all these different campaigns that the department has done over the years have helped us to be able to get the message out and at least bring it to people's minds that this is important. So the 264 is the lowest, as you see, since 2014. And what's even better is that our fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled is at 0.8, which is the lowest since 2005. So very good numbers. We're definitely trending in the right direction. Any questions on that one? I see some.
Yes, well, I'll let Donna go first.
Well,
Okay.
Well, you just brought up that percentage, the 0.8.
Mhm.
I think given the amount of drivers that have increased, I think that particular number would be important to be able to see as well.
You will definitely take a look at that and include that in the number. In fact, I think we talked about that, but it is not on this graph. That would be a good one to take a look at, is the rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. As you know, we have a lot more vehicles on our roads and traveling many more miles on our roads than we have in years past, and so that's a good trend to bring that number down. Megan, or Commissioner Holbrook,
With all deference to the feds about age, too. It's always hard to hear 65. Anyway, I think maybe you should remind the audience who our partners are in zero fatalities.
We have many partners in our zero fatalities. We have obviously
Just a few.
There's a few of our news stations here in the Salt Lake area are zero fatalities partners, and honestly, I'm Carlos, can you?
Jason, go ahead.
So some of the partners I would point out right away, the first one just sits across the hall from us, DPS, our Department of Public Safety. They do a great job of helping with the enforcement and the emergency responders, as well as getting folks there. Really the number that jumps out to me when Rob has gone through this, he might talk about later, but we went from 86 unrestrained fatalities last year to 50 this year. So I would say some of our partners are the public. They're buckling up more. It's obvious that those numbers are dropping of unrestrained fatalities, and it's still amazing that there's 50 that were unrestrained, but a drop from 86 to 50 is pretty substantial. So I would say the partners of the public listening and doing their part. Now if we could just give them put down their phones, we'd be doing really well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it's good with the TV stations because they remind people, and it does take a village. It isn't just transportation that is zero fatalities.
Yes. You know, and I would say, you know, commissioners, you've done a big part in this, in the funding of the zero fatalities campaigns that you've done. I can't remember off the top of my head how many schools, high schools, we get into for new drivers education program. Being able to attend those, I know some of the commissioners have attended those. That's a remarkable program, and that's where we're going to be making a difference, is with these new drivers. And so I want to thank the commission for your help in this.
Thank you.
Rob?
Yes.
Are all these people Utahns? Are all these deceased Utahns? They're visitors?
It's anyone on a public road. So it's state or local. It's just public roads, any individual who lost their life or the serious injuries.
So we don't.
The question is, are they residents of Utah?
We could go into individual accident reports. We do not report that. These numbers do not represent whether or not they're in-state or out-state.
But it's any public road, not just UDOT roads, is what we're reporting on. So.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
So the next set of graphs we have are the number of serious injuries. These are life-altering injuries such as lacerations, broken or distorted limb, or crash injuries. And as you see on that graph also, the trend is in a positive direction. The number of injuries is down from that, so that's also positive. So these are a lot larger number. The fatality numbers obviously are small. These are a larger number, and you can see the goal and the trend has been going down, and so that is also positive. We have also over on our UDOT side of our internal folks, we have the same concern for safety with our internal folks as we do for the public. We want everybody to go home at the end of the day. And as you can see back in 2018, there's a spike there, and that's typically correlated with our snow plowing efforts and the amount of folks we have out on the road in driving snow plows. Those are very large machines and very complex to operate. And typically what we see is we see a spike in the number of injuries and crashes or accidents, property loss during that time. But as you'll notice in this year, that trend has not continued, and we've done very good about keeping our injuries and property loss accidents low. So that is positive.
Yes, please. Maybe a good time.
Go ahead.
I appreciate you arranging me to have a couple of things to look at last week in my area. I got to go up on the avalanche, and for a little bit, Rob arranged to go up there and watch that, and that was very interesting to see them, the UDOT folks, going for 24 hours straight to get that 30-foot high thing, and 30 feet high is really tall. I still saw some of that. But the snowplow thing, he arranged for a nice storm on Monday, and I was able to go out with ride with, I think his name was Skip Bueller. So Bueller did not take the day off. He actually worked with all the other ones. I think it was Sean, the supervisor. But I, for a couple hours, drove that road in that snowplow. I didn't drive. Don't worry. I was in the passenger seat. But just I wanted to give a shout out to the snowplow. I was amazed to see that experience, to see what they deal with, and some of the crazy people out there that just don't want to get out of their way. And I just very safe, the safety things that I saw. But I was just very, if any of you haven't done that, you probably have. I just want to give a shout out to snowplow drivers and all they provide. It was incredible, the work they did, and the wipers. It was icing up. I couldn't see. I don't know how he saw through the window. I couldn't see through the window. And so I just wanted to say thank you to what they do on behalf of the public and get that in the minutes for the great. On their day off, they were out there clearing our roads so we could be safe on the highway. So
that's a good point. Carlos, remind me. Years ago, we said every big storm is about $1 million out of our budget. So Monday looked like 1.5 to me.
That was a statement.
Is that still true, though?
That's a general rule of thumb that we use. I mean, every storm is different.
Mm-hmm.
So when we track those, in fact, Jason has just been reviewing where we stand on our snow budget. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Carlos asked me after that last big one, hey, how are we doing? You know, it's been a while since we had a couple back-to-back like that. And so I reached out to Nate and his team, and Nate was all over it. They just had a budget review meeting the day before, so he was very quick in getting the information back. We're tracking slightly under, almost exactly on our snow budget for the year of what we project. It feels like we've been hammered, but this is what average actually is. So we're looking good. But yeah, that last storm, when you looked on our app at the snowplow icons, it was border to border, literally. I mean, it was from Arizona to Wyoming, Nevada to Colorado. It was a pretty impressive look.
True statewide storm.
Yeah, and on the safety, the reason because I had no idea that if they go up any of those canyons, I got to stop, put on their vest, and they've got the beacon. So some of the things I had no idea, was aware of, that contribute towards the safety and the hours and equipment to make sure our drivers are kept safe. And so that was something else that really impressed me, that we make sure that we're protecting you, even though you're in this big truck, if an avalanche comes down. So that just was something that really impressed me.
It's pretty amazing, the dedication of our snowplow drivers. I've as well ridden in those cabs, and it's very, like I mentioned earlier, it's very complex. And many of those storms don't come at a convenient time. They'll come on Christmas Eve. They'll come on other holidays throughout the year. And our snowplow drivers are very dedicated to get out there and clear our roads for the safety of the traveling public. So very, very good points.
It's my impression that it's illegal to pass an operating snowplow. Can you confirm that? Is there a law?
If it's illegal to pass a operating snowplow. I don't believe it's illegal. It's inadvisable.
Stupid, maybe.
It's stupid, yes.
Well, it is.
The best place to be in a snowstorm is behind that snowplow, because that's going to make the...
People that it's illegal to do it.
That's all right.
But
Yeah, we'll tell 'em. We can keep going.
I know a lot of the accidents have occurred under those circumstances when somebody's trying to get past a snowplow.
We have done many things to make our snowplows more visible. I was watching a plow this Monday storm, and they had a whole string of lights out on the wing plow to help let people know, hey, there's something out here besides just the actual truck itself. There's a wing that extends out many feet past the side of the truck. So.
And in between plowing, they'd come in and he'd go into the shed and he'd wash off the hose, the ice and snow off of the lights, just to make sure people could see the lights. So even little things like that some people would take for granted to make sure that they could be seen.
Rob, did you ask Commissioner Evans to sign a waiver before we got on the...
I was told to not talk to him unless asked to speak, and I was very careful. Not in it distract him, but when you see, you're coming up there, and of course I'm the passenger, and I'm thinking, how's he not even hitting that curb or the median? But when there's a car parked there, you ought to see those cars, woof, they're like, okay, I'm getting out of the way. So most people were pretty smart. I need to say we do have a lot of smart public drivers. There was just a few that were a little dumb out there. Okay, I won't talk.
And that was in Utah County, right?
Yeah, on the north part, where all those technical up in Silicon Slopes.
Well, thank you,
Move on,
I would like to offer the same to any other commissioners that are interested in doing a ride-along. Contact me, and we'll set that up with wherever you would like to try that out. I mean, the canyons are definitely a very high stress environment with the avalanches, but there are other folks out there as well if you'd like to do a ride-along. Just quickly, and the trend again on both these final graphs, which are total crashes and employee equipment rate damage. As you can see, as I mentioned earlier, there should have been a spike starting in November or December because of the additional folks we had out on the road plowing, but that number has stayed actually very low. And then our crashes have come down again in 2018 as well, and so we're pretty excited about those numbers and the way they're trending. But again, as I mentioned off the top, there's still work to do. Every 0 fatalities is truly the goal, and it's important that everybody gets home safely at the end of the day. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a road user charge. Nathan Lee is going to present that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Glad to be here with you today. Roughly 1 year ago, Senate Bill 136 was started having discussions as the legislature opened session. And this bill created a road usage charge. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of update about some of the items that were in this bill, how it affects the commission, and what you can see moving forward. So first of all, with this road usage charge was out of the Senate bill were a few items. It applied to vehicles that are electric in some way. So electric vehicles, electric hybrids that we call plug-ins, and gasoline hybrids that have battery electric power within them. The bill applies just to those vehicles. It also, the bill asked us to look at things that related to privacy, how you would report road usage mileage, and how you would administer this type of system. What would it actually look like? So that's what we've spent the last year doing. They wanted it implemented a year from now, January 1st of 2020. They wanted the system implemented, and then they wanted annual reports of our finding and where they're at. So to start this effort, an advisory committee was created. Commissioner Barlow has been on that advisory committee for us and representing the commission on that and has done a fantastic job. We appreciate all his service and ideas related to that. As you can see on the screen, there were 5 different areas that we divided up the committee into subsections so that we could focus on things related to compliance or related to privacy and security and those different things to make this work. We've reported to the advisory committee at 3 different times, May, August, and November, and along with those frequent work sessions, we gave a final report to the Transportation and Task Force Review in December, which is setting up some of the implementation components that we'll look at this year during the legislative session. And I'll show you what those are at the end of the presentation. Why might you want this program? Well, over the years, and depending what year you start this revenue analysis at, it changes this graph. We've have it started from the early 2000s, but roughly speaking, over that period of time, that 15 plus years that you see here, the amount of money that's coming in from gas tax is eroding in your ability to build highway systems. And it comes from 2 places mainly. One is the cost of construction, and the other is the efficiency of cars. And that efficiency of cars is changing daily for us now as more and more electric cars come online. It's not just cars getting better gas mileage, but also cars that get no gas mileage at all. So Utah has always been a forward-thinking state and looking at how to address that, and that's what the item over there on the right shows, that from the legislature to the transportation department to you as commissioners, everybody's had involvement in trying to help improve this situation for maintaining the highway system and figuring out what it will look like in the future. So just like the gas tax started 100 years ago, as we move to electric and other things, what will it look like? Indexing was one of the things that the state of Utah did to address the construction cost inflation portion of this. And looking at this road usage charge, or a mileage-based program, is the next step in trying to address those components that are being lost.
Nate, does that number include diesel fuel? Or is that just gasoline?
This number here?
38%.
This tax revenue includes all of the tax of fuels.
Diesel fuel as well?
Correct. Yeah, and alternative fuels.
Now, what's the impact of diesel burning automobiles?
Impact in terms of, like, what's their gas mileage?
Do you know the percentage of cars are burning diesel fuel on our highways?
Yes, I do. How about this slide right here?
9%.
They're about 9%, my friend.
Thank you.
You bet. Yes, as we look a little bit at Utah's fleet and where we're at, you can see that roughly 80% is gasoline, 9 diesel. What I want you to pay attention to in this slide as well is all other fuel types. Now these are normally referred to as alternative fuels, and you'll see there's 51,000 vehicles roughly in Utah that are there. Now if you look at the RUC eligible ones down below, you'll see there's 44,000. So there's a discrepancy there. Then the discrepancy there again was all of the ones that are eligible for the RUC are electric related. So those 3 on the bottom, gas, hybrid, EV, and plug-ins, are electric related. So if you drive one of the other types of vehicles like CNG, they're included in that 51,000, but they're not eligible for the program. So this question comes up quite a bit, and because you hear RUC in Utah, we've heard often people talk about electric, and they also talk about alternative fuel. Just wanted to make it clear for you that there is a slight difference in those. But roughly there's 45,000 vehicles that are eligible for this program right now. So yes sir.
So these are the registered vehicles in the state of Utah?
Correct.
Right?
These are registered vehicles in the state of Utah.
Those vehicles are not registered in the state of Utah. How do you calculate, how do you get those responsible?
In terms of, are they eligible for the program? Right now they're not, but I'll show you what the future looks like in terms of that. It's called interoperability, and it's being researched on how you deal with that.
Thank you.
I'll show you that in a minute. In Utah then, if you look at the roughly 4,000 EVs, those electric vehicles we have, they're growing at a rate of about 47% a year. So that means over the last 3 years, we've been bringing on about a little over 1,000 more electric vehicles a year. And you can see from the compounding effect how quickly that'll change. as well as hybrids are increasing at about a 14% growth, and that amounts to about 5,000 more hybrids a year coming online. Okay, one of the questions that you hinted at there is, what does it cost in terms of gas, and what does that eroding look like? This chart just tries to help put it in perspective for you. Couple of notes there is that the current tax with that indexing will be at 30 cents a gallon roughly. Average car mileage recorded in Utah is almost 15,000 miles a year now. And the federal tax rate is that 18.4 cents, or it's slightly higher for diesel, and it's slightly less for some alternative fuel vehicles. So if you drive an average car, sedan at 25 miles per gallon, you pay about $300 a year in taxes. Just kind of puts it in line there. You can find the type of vehicle you drive and get a pretty good idea of what you actually pay. So Senate Bill 136 started as of January 2019, 25 days ago, charging every person that has one of those three electric vehicle types the fees that you see here on the schedule for 2019, 60, 26, and 10. And as the fees are fully implemented over a 3-year pattern, you can see down there on the bottom what the ongoing fee rate is. That's an annual fee that you're charged if you own one of these vehicles that doesn't use traditional gas tax to pay. Now option B over there is the road usage program. And that option can take effect starting in January of 2020, this coming January, 1 year from now. That option will be a per mile fee. You'll pay per mile, and that's what the coins over there on the right side talk about, is it's a per mile fee. And that option also represents that you need to establish what the rate that fee will be. And that will be a commission roll, most likely based on how that Senate bill goes.
I was there, okay. I guess the light means it's off instead of on. Sorry about that. Don't laugh at me, Donna.
My light's on.
So the advisory committee made some recommendations that Nate's going to review soon that will go to the legislature for their consideration. So I think, you know, who makes that decision is still going to be dependent on what the legislature decides.
The question I think that he's referring to is it a tax or is it a fee? If it's a tax, then it should be set by the legislature, and if it's a fee, most likely it'd be set by the commission, just like the tolling is. So what does this program look like? This chart will just give you an overview of what's there. There's types of ways data is collected in cars. There's vehicle types that are all different, and there's systems and processes that can happen. So the orange little Utahs that are colored in, those are the things that will start in the program in 2020. The ones that are hashed are things that we're looking at bringing online. And the ones that are open are components that exist in other places throughout the United States, but we currently don't. And the little numbers in blue that are on the right tells you the number of states that currently have either a pilot or a program that's using that type of effort. So, for instance, in vehicle types, electric vehicles, there's 16 states that are looking at a charge related to electric vehicles, and there's proposals right now for more than half of the states for electric vehicle charges that are there. More come on all the time. So how we administer this program, we plan to administer it through a commercial account manager. In terms of privacy and some of the different things that are there, we feel the safest position for the state to be in is to use a commercial account manager to do data collection and the different feeds that are there, and control and limit what comes into the government and how we receive it. The final RFP for this account manager will go out right at the end of the legislative session, and just waiting on a few details for how that will operate to close up and release that final RFP, and we should be awarded and under plan to start implementation by July. So if somebody wants to enroll in a program, it's pretty simple. It'll look like this. They go online, they put in their license plate number, they get a valid credit card or a prepaid wallet method, just like we use for the tolling prepaid wallets. They sign an agreement with that account manager, and they submit their odometer. Because they get to pay by the mile, that's why they submit their odometer. Once the odometer's in there, then they can have their per mileage charge. They get a couple of choices. They can choose to enter into the RUC program, but down there on the bottom left, or they can choose to opt out. If they opt out, they pay the fee that they paid this year that we saw in that option A. They just pay the annual fee. If they want to opt into the program, then they have some choices about what they want to do with their data. Now, some of you have probably seen insurance companies in that give different rate structures based on how you drive. They're gathering data from how your car drives, and if you brake too hard or drive too fast, that type of thing. Those are called value-added services in this program, and those pieces of information are available, and drivers have a choice to have them and use them or not. They can just collect their odometer and pay their fee if they want. The system will accommodate both. In accommodating those, the number one concern that comes up is privacy. How do you deal with privacy in the data that's here? So pay attention in this screen to the stuff that's on the left. You as a RUC payer, someone who drives the car and would pay this fee per mile, you're allowed all of those choices up there with your data. You can view it, you can dispute it, you're protected from grammar requests, and you're protected from the release of any of your data unless it's for a criminal proceeding. As well, that commercial account manager then, they collect the data, but they do not share it with the government or the state unless there's a dispute, and you've noticed the dispute is at the request of the payee. And they also send the mileage summaries to the state, and they share aggregated and anonymized data with the state. So the state can start to learn things about driving use, just like many of the other methods we have about cars and driving today, but it's aggregated and anonymized data in doing that. And in that way, it protects the individual, but allows the program to help us identify needs on the highway with users. So to make all of that program work, there's a couple of things in the draft Senate Bill 72 that'll be considered by the legislature this year. And the draft rule that's out there right now identifies these items. It authorizes both UDOT and the DMV to do some information sharing. Right now, there's some components that aren't allowed there that need to happen. It authorizes all of those electric type vehicles to participate in the program. And then it grants rulemaking authority to the Transportation Commission to set RUC rates. And this is what Carlos identified. The bill would grant that rulemaking authority to you. If it's deemed to be a tax, then it would take a different path. And then it grants rulemaking authority to UDOT to do some things regarding hiring that commercial account manager, administering the program, implementing some of those enforcement mechanisms, and establishing yearly fee caps for people to enroll in the program. For instance, it's anticipated that if you'd enrolled in the program that you would be capped in your mileage to not pay more than you'd pay in the annual fee, so that it's not a disincentive to be in the program, things like that. And that's what the program's standing up to look like. This is the draft legislation that Linda will be working closely with the legislature and Carlos to work through to make the program work, and some of the expectations you could have. Any questions?
Yes, please.
In part because I live in a rural part of the state where we end up doing a lot more driving. I just want to make sure that I understand that I would be able to just pay the annual fee. That's an option. I can choose Plan A or Plan B, and the annual fee versus the mileage, and a cap would cover the mileage. I guess I'm trying to make sure that this serves rural Utah as well as it does urban Utah.
Yes, so everyone can pay the annual fee. That's always a choice. And if you want to do the per mile fee, that gets to be a choice for you as well. And you wouldn't pay in excess per mile of that you'd pay in the annual fee.
Thanks. I appreciate that clarification.
So it's a win-win for you if you join the program in terms of what you could pay. If you drive less, it's a win. If you drive more, it's the same.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Questions?
In terms of communication, we'll be working on branding this year. We'll be working on the website and how the information goes out, and we'll be doing educational outreach. We currently did some focus groups here in the last month, learning more about how different Utahns view the program, and they'll continue to work on that outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Okay, item number 6 is the update on Cottonwood Canyon, and John Thomas is going to give that report.
Yeah.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to update you on the Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement. Last winter, we began the environmental impact statement process. We've been gathering a bunch of comments from stakeholders, hundreds of them. We've identified a lot of information sources for us to start to understand some of the issues in the canyon that led us to complete several studies. We've completed a transit study. We've completed an avalanche study. We've installed over 50 sensors throughout the valley and within the canyon to understand travel behavior better for this study. We've evaluated a variety of traffic data sources to understand conditions, and we're starting to observe something. And one of the things is there's no consistency in the variables that we see in the canyon that affect transportation. Some places we see a little more consistent. It gets congested here every day at this time. In the canyons, we get a mix of things. And in the last month, over the Christmas and New Year's holiday, we saw some conditions that were different than what we saw over the Martin Luther King holiday. But they all impact travelers. And so we're starting to understand those issues better. We're starting to create a focus on where we're headed with the environmental impact statement. And we've also observed something else. There's been 20+ studies been done in the canyons trying to understand some of the issues and conditions there and what to do with those. And people, when they hear we're coming, UDOT is coming to look at Little Cottonwood Canyon, they understand that there's some money to do things. They are frustrated and they are so excited to know that something might actually get done. And so we're trying to respect that understanding of our stakeholders. Also the opportunity that we do have $66 million that you appropriated last STIP workshop for the Little Cottonwood Canyon. And we're identifying a focused EIS process. And in that process, what we're doing is looking at things that we think will make a difference. They're reasonable, they're practical, and they're within the budget that we have been assigned to. It doesn't fix everything. I talked about those different variables. We get different snow rates. The more snow we get, the more people we get. The pavement can be colder one day from next. The salt doesn't work as well. It's a holiday, it's a midweek, it's a lot of different conditions. We're also seeing just the fact that the way season passes are being sold are having a big impact in what happens in the canyon that we didn't see last year, according to the managers at 2 of the ski areas. So lots of variables. However, UDOT is focused on providing avalanche mitigation in the environmental impact statement. We've done an avalanche study, we've designed it, we've costed it. We have a sense of where that could go for the department and for our traveling public. Also some intersection improvements, and this is just around just cleaning up operations, choke point type projects, things that we do all the time, nothing big there. And then Wasatch Boulevard is part of this process as well, looking at Wasatch Boulevard from the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon south to where it splits off to Wasatch Boulevard south or goes north up or east up into Little Cottonwood Canyon. So we'll be looking at that. Another element, and this is more of a summer issue, is some trailheads in Little Cottonwood Canyon. Right now, there's only one developed trailhead, and that's at White Pine. It has some restrooms, about 40 spots. We get a lot of cars, a half-mile each side of the road up and down the canyon on the weekends. It's a safety hazard not only for those people parking, but for the traveling public and cars going up and down the canyon, as well as anybody doing active transportation on the road. It creates a real problem. So one of the things we've looked at is going from 40 spots up to 150 spots, adding more restrooms, providing a much safer environment for people to get in and out of that area, as well as a transit stop. We've also identified 2 other locations farther down the canyon to develop trailheads that are not currently there. And so there's a summer aspect of this as well. And so in that focus EIS, we also saw some things that we were learning about early on, last spring timeframe, about gondolas, about trains, about transit, about tolling, about communications. And we felt that those things we couldn't address solely in Little Cottonwood Canyon. We needed to look at both Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon. You might imagine our challenge of looking at tolling just in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and because we're doing the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS, it'd be difficult to do. So we this is an action item that you'll see in agenda item number 8, item 10 in there, Little Cottonwood Canyon. We'd like to move some money from that $66 million to fund this other transportation study, to allow us to look at these other elements that are important to both canyons, provides more insight into those, and that'll be an action item that Ivan will bring to you. But the purpose of that is give us an opportunity to address both canyons with an equal view of different issues, make those recommendations, and have those prioritized for the commission to consider at a future date. One of the interesting things about this in the transit, for instance, if we do this route, if we have a transportation study and an EIS, the EIS is going to take about 2 years to complete. The transportation study would take about the same time. However, we can go in and for transit, do an analysis and implement transit elements tomorrow if that was the decision to be made. They do not need to go through the EIS process. And we're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 car parking garages, maybe numerous buses, operations, things of that nature that could be implemented right away should that be a choice by decision makers in the future. So the transportation study allows us that flexibility to maybe implement on some things very quickly, as well as identify and further discuss other things with maybe a longer term focus. So that's where we are with this. Happy to answer any questions or concerns you have and go into those a little deeper. That's a quick overview.
Any question?
At the beginning, well, when we went through the hotspot thing, I guess we should have looked at both little and big.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the last part.
You want to move the money to do both canyons,
Yes, yes.
and we should have included both in the hotspot thing at the time.
I think initially, Little Cottonwood has made some unique conditions that maybe drove that decision around its the avalanche risk there is the highest in the world, and so I think there's an effort to. Yes. Yeah.
By orders of magnitude.
Really, I didn't know. Oh, okay. Excuse me, John. Go ahead.
No, and so I think at that time the thinking was, let's go into Little Cottonwood, see what we can do with the money that we have available.
Right.
And then as we learn more, we noticed there are some things we needed to look at both canyons with.
Go ahead. John, I appreciate this. My office is right there at the canyon mouth, and I just know how important it is. It's not just wintertime, it's year-round an issue. And I get more comments about this than anything else as a commissioner that I work on this Little Cottonwood Canyon. So thank you for the movement going forward. I think it's a great thing to do. And I will just make my old hobby horse. I appreciate the wonderful new signs that are out there, but there's an exit sign, the canyons on just off of I-215 that just, I look at that and I just think, that can't be Utah. That is not what we want to be looking like signage for our visitors going up that mountaintop. So I just throw that again.
What direction?
It's heading
Southbound on I-215 to get off.
northbound on I-215 right there at 6200 South. That sign looks like something out of Romania, and we are not Romania. So I know part of this.
Brian, do you want to respond?
Sorry, Brian. Thank you. I know. And he's done so well. It's just that one sticks out, and I know every person going up that canyon from that direction is seeing that sign, just thinking, man, that's not. Anyway, thank you.
What's wrong with it? Does it have bullet holes or what? That's Utah.
No, it's just wear and tear. It's falling.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I mean, I drive that twice a day. I see it every day.
Okay.
It's on my heart.
It's an age.
I'm representing the public, doing what I can here.
So Brian has gone through a prioritization process of needs in the region for transportation systems, solutions program, and those signs are on the list.
Yeah.
I am honored to hear that, and I know it's my hobby horse, but.
And maybe if I could just make one clarification on the transportation study. Well, I'll make two. Start with the EIS. The Commission has approved $5 million for the EIS. We're on track to be within budget on that at this point. For the transportation study, $1.5 million coming from the $66 million to be transferred to the transportation study, and then to be combined with another source of funds from House Bill 3. I think in the fact sheet I put House Bill 1 incorrectly, but House Bill 3 for $500,000 that was identified last year in the session. That was for parking structure location study in the Cottonwood Canyons area, I think is the title to that. We're going to combine that 1.5, 500 to 2 million and do both as a as one project.
Okay.
Thank you, John. We'll wait until your presentation for the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item number 7 is the consent agenda. For those of you who have read the minutes, if you'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes and item number B.
The consent agenda.
Okay. There's a motion and a second in the consent agenda. Any further questions, corrections, modifications? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, program development. Ivan is going to present the report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ivan.
I'm letting Heather drive for us. She's getting us set up.
I love that one.
Thank you, Heather.
I need a Heather.
This morning, our first item from our financial programming group is a funds exchange between Region 1 and WFRC. Region 1 is requesting approval to swap with North Ogden City from the North Ogden City project 4.1 million of federal funds for 3.5 million of state TIF. Again, we've done this several times. We took a look at it over the last 10 years. We've done about $120 million of federal exchanges and given local governments the ability to use state funds because they're easier for them to work with. And this is just one of those examples that the local entity that's been awarded money would like to use state funds that we've swapped for them. With that being said, our ask for today is the approval, a motion needed to approve this exchange of state TIF funds for the federal funds currently on the 450, 400 East, 2600 North to Alberta project as detailed.
Move for approval.
I second.
Would you please remind some of the freshman commissioners the exchange ratio of the state to federal money?
Our exchange rate is 85 cents on the dollar, so 85%, which is why the exchange will take, we being UDOT will take $4,140,000 of federal funds and issue $3.5 million of state funds for the local government.
And by doing that, you get 620,000 for the UDOT.
And you're correct, and the requirements that come with using federal dollars.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the item number 8.1. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman. And then just to note with that, we do, when we make these exchanges, we do try to look for projects that already have federal dollars on them. So we won't change our process for a project to take a non-state funded or a non-federally funded project and add federal dollars for this exchange. We look for those projects that already have federal dollars and swap, which is what this particular project in Region 1 is already doing. So thank you. Moving forward, we're trying to address some of the challenges on our fact sheet by giving the Commission a little easier format of the information that's available, taking out some of the verbiage and including ways that you can see this information, digest it a little easier, and take action on it. And you'll notice that from the next, our next agenda items. You'll just notice a little difference in the format. Our item number 2 is a Region 1 project, PIN 14205. And again, here, if you remember in the past, we'd have to scroll to a second page to show the map and then back and forth. We're trying to be able to show all of that content for you together. Notice this particular project, with the justification or the reason for the change, is determined that the existing pavement on this road is deteriorated beyond that of the treatment that had been planned. So the region is asking to move this treatment or increase this treatment that was planned for this section. So Region 1's, our ask for this motion is the approval to add $2 million to SR 102, I-84 to SR 82 project as detailed.
Rebuilding that road is the reason it's jumped so significantly from the original pavement rehab figure.
Correct.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
While you consider the motion, approving the motion, also recognize that this was suggested by Terry to go this format, and I personally like it, but the commission needs to decide that we need to go back to the old format or just continue with this new one. The sense of the seeing everything with the map underneath kind of gives you the sense of whether the project is, the road, or the program. And the money they're spending, what was it previously allocated, what is the extra money needed, and what is the total project value. So you need to decide. Yes, Donna.
The question I would ask is, where does this extra $2 million come from?
So
just the transportation, their transportation solutions fund, so it's already available to them? Okay.
Correct. Okay. And the majority of that transportation solutions funds right now, because the unprogrammed balance, is from those efficiencies that we've gained in delivering projects. That's part of the consent agenda item where we've moved money back. It's available to be programmed.
If you're asking us if we like it better, yes.
So this format, go
Yes,
forward?
it's simpler, simpler is better
Okay.
For this group.
for this group.
65 and older, is that
Who
what it is?
said that, yeah.
James?
He's trying to get me back for you.
I was gonna say, if you're in Salt Lake County, this simple's probably the.
Yeah. You tough.
I wasn't gonna say that, though, I told you.
No, it's okay. It's public record now.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is
Mr.
approved.
Chairman?
Yes.
If I could, and Ivan, could you bring that back and just where we talk about preservation versus rehabilitation and a couple other things. So during our workshop, the commission makes the decision to allocate how you allocate what we call the transportation solution funds. And then as you deobligate funds from projects where we may have, saved money on that project, the commission has decided that stays within that region boundary. And so that's the fund that is available for this money right now. In terms of preservation versus rehabilitation, we're constantly watching and measuring and trying to understand the condition of all the roadways. And when the regions make a recommendation for a project, they're looking at the top of the road. And so they felt that this was a preservation for this type of project. But once you fund a project, then they're going to go out there and they're going to core the road. And they're going to start to look at the pavement structure and understand what's going on below the surface. And so preservation tends to be working from the top side of the pavement and being able to stay working on the top. When we get into a rehabilitation, then you start getting down into the pavement. You're road milling out a portion of that pavement and then having to replace it. So it becomes, it's a much more significant type of a project. The next level you'd see is if we start using the term reconstruct, and that typically means we're going down into the base section below the pavement section and building it back from the bottom up. And so you'll see preservation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction as really the three different levels of surgery that we're performing on those roadways, if that's helpful.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, located in Region 1 between Hooper and Roy, SR 97 SR 37 to 3000 West. After additional evaluation on this project, it was determined that the top 1.5 inches of asphalt needs to be removed and in place rather than just being overlaid to maintain the existing transitions into driveways, side streets, and curb sections to provide a smoother ride on SR 97. The $500,000 for this request is available from the unprogrammed balance of the Region 1 Transportation Solutions Program. Our ask for today, then, is the approval to add this $500,000 of funds to the SR 97, SR 37 to 3000 West project.
Move for approval of that. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussions, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 3 is approved.
Thank you. Item number 4, also in Region 1, Logan pedestrian crossing improvements with our railroads. See on the map, this is several locations across the Cache Valley area. Additional funds are needed for the increased cost that we've seen and associated with our rail crossing. Our ask then for today is a motion to approve this $300,000 for the Logan pedestrian crossing improvement project as detailed.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 is approved.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a new project that we would like to add. It is going to be funded out of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, the unfunded, as well as in a previous commission, I believe we've combined projects that were adjacent and close to each other, and that efficiency that we gained specifically from that PIN combination has allowed us to move $1.1 million of the Highway Safety Improvement funds. And this particular project on I-80, it's a westbound auxiliary lane between SR 201 and SR 36 in an effort to improve the traffic pattern. Right now, the commuters from Tooele County are weaving in and out, and this westbound auxiliary lane will try to address some of those safety concerns.
Isn't it closed this weekend then? Is that the road that's closed this weekend?
No, this section right here is closed.
Right. Yes, this is in the area that, well, it's just actually just the bridge that we're working on that will be closing this weekend is just north of this segment. It's the bridge that we're working on to replace right now. The plan is to put a temporary bridge in February, but we've got some significant potholes that are showing up, and so we needed to get in there and try to take care of them this weekend. So
If the commissioner remembers, we toured this area in the September commission meeting.
It needs it.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian.
So I need a motion on the
Oh, I so
number on the
moved.
phone? Okay.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Number 5 is approved.
Thank you. Item number 6 is a funding addition, the UVU pedestrian crossing bridge over I-15. Here is the map. This is one where I will continue to scroll down. We have some other images that we'd like to include on our fact sheet. There's our location. Here's our artist rendering of what this bridge will look like, as well as an additional map showing, better showing the location in the university.
Yep. Pretty cool.
This project is to construct a pedestrian bridge over I-15 from the Orem Frontrunner Station to the Utah Valley University. Additional funding is needed to address the changes in scope and design. Some of this funding is adding additional funds from UVU.
as well as some state transportation funds. Our ask for today then is a motion needed to add this $13,244,000 to this project.
I'm happy to make the motion, but how much is UVU putting in?
UVU is funding $6 million in total of our project. I don't have it broken up on the top. UVU is funding $6 million to this project.
Megan, can I maybe address that?
Sure. Yeah.
I had a chance to talk to Vice President Val Peterson yesterday, just because some of us had a question where that money's coming from.
Okay, good.
And they had, where they've taken that original $3 million from, he said they're going to take an additional $3 million, so the total $6 million they're putting in comes from a pot of contingency money they had. It's not money they have to go ask for from anywhere else. It's just some they had for projects where they needed, such as this. So it's coming out of where the original 3 to add that additional 3 and 6 total out of that pot of money.
Okay, good.
Actually, we have someone from the UVU. We're going to ask him to come back.
Yeah, Frank.
Come give us some background, and yes, and introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Frank Young. I'm the Associate Vice President of Facilities and Planning at Utah Valley University. I've been at the university since 2001, and when I arrived, this project, this concept of getting students and citizens of Orem from east to west was being discussed. Early ideas were a gondola system that would take students from an apartment complex and bring them over to campus. Unirails have been discussed, and even early discussions in the 70s involved a pneumatic tube system that would push people back and forth. But we support this project. We've enjoyed our partnership with UTA. We also have a strong partnership with UDOT, and we appreciate that as well. UTA is donating $4 million towards this project, along with our 6. And we appreciate your support of this. We see it as a great connection and an addition to our student life. There will be 8,000 student beds on the west side of I-15. Those students now have to drive to campus. They've been using the bus system recently, but we think this connecting bridge will facilitate and make it even easier for our students that live on the west to come to campus and participate in basketball games, soccer games, activities that occur in the evenings on campus. This year with UTA, we've provided parking permits for all of our students, faculty, and staff and their dependents. We've seen a great reduction in the demand on our parking on campus. So last year, at this time, we had less than 300 available parking stalls for students on campus. With the UTA pass, we're over 1,100 parking stalls available. So we don't see a need in the future to build new surface parking on campus because the UVX is working well. This bridge will supplement that and encourage more to park on the west or to ride transportation to campus. It's been a really great thing to see. We see this as a, that last mile that people talk about. This bridge allows our students to use the front runner, to use the UVX, and to come to campus on foot. They can ride bikes across the bridge as well, which we think will be a really great motivator for the people that live on the west side of campus. So in my years, we've seen this as a great linchpin in connecting our campus west and east. We're also planning, our master plan shows campus developments along the front runner system. The Vineyard stop, which is in design right now, will bring students that live in the Vineyard area to us. They can use the bridge. Lehigh residents can take front runner down and use the bridge. And as UTA takes front runner south, people like me, a resident of Springville, I would take the train up and use this bridge as well as I went to work. So I'm happy to entertain any questions, but we appreciate you looking at this project and helping it become a reality.
I have promised Mr. Young only 50 questions, so please, go ahead.
This is a very expensive project.
Yes.
And I think something that has concern. I mean, if you look at this, the total cost of this is half of the Cottonwood project. So that's a significant comparison as we look to this.
Yeah, if I could interject on that thought right there. UVU is the largest university in the state. We have nearly 40,000 students this year. Our enrollment is projected to go up above 50,000 students in the next 10 to 15 years. Our open enrollment mission and the growth of Utah County and the state of Utah will just drive students to our facilities, bringing them on the train to a location where they can cross easily. We think will alleviate a lot of traffic on I-15 and local roads in Orem. So we know it's expensive, but we're very large. We have a lot of people that will use it.
Well, this is kind of a unique problem in that not many universities have a freeway going through the middle of it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So it takes some special attention to take care of this need, I think.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm very much in support of this, given the growth and the key role that Utah Valley University plays in Silicon Slopes and everything else. What is the design upgrades, Frank, and the scale and scope that necessitated this additional expenditure?
Yeah, we started with design an inverted Fink truss with cylindrical main piers, and that became very expensive to build. So working with our project manager of UDOT and the construction manager, Kramer Industries, that came along, we took it from that inverted Fink truss to a more standard bridge style. But as you mentioned earlier in the meeting, the tariffs on steel, just construction costs, have driven a redesign, and hopefully we're driving the cost a little bit down. Even though it's very expensive, we're trying to be as frugal as we can in the design and structure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Another thing to consider is that initially, and I'm fairly intimate with this area because I used to, in a former role, used to work with UDOT down there to talk about our transportation needs in Orem. The 800 South, you know, potential future interchange, even more changes down it would cost to do things on 13 South, and this would help push hopefully some of those out, which would be very expensive, by just having more of that parking over to the west side to allow more people to use that. Plus the fact that people like me need to walk more. I hope we could promote people walking across there without driving. Just that's, I know that's not the maybe, but that's just a little piece of it to throw in with all the other things. Yeah. And sure. I really like the fact when you mentioned that up in Vineyard, because you could be think of this, you could be a faculty or someone, you could teach a class there, jump on the train, go down and walk across and go teach down at the other campus down there and other places too. So I also like that concept that it's right along the transportation corridor. So
excellent. And one other, as you look at this drawing, if you've been on our campus, all of our major buildings are connected through a concourse. That's actually our utility tunnels that we can walk through. But as we plan for the bridge and growth on campus, we are going to take major buildings towards the bridge, and eventually the bridge will connect with our campus concourse system. So you can get off the train and be right into our buildings and off to wherever you need to be. That's right, just to let, yep, exactly right there, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I've been very concerned about this project from the beginning, given the cost of it. However, I've become a real advocate for this process, understanding the long-term solution that we're looking to. I want to commend Terry and her team for helping to look at all of the various options. I know that there was great due diligence done on the part of the UDOT staff to make sure that this was the right decision, both immediately as we try to relieve congestion off of that intersection, and then also long-term as we look to maybe encourage students as well as faculty and staff to use the bridge. I work on a campus, and I know students are lazy, and they want to be door-to-door people. So part of my hesitation was I know students well enough to know that they're not going to walk, but UVU has an opportunity to actually make this very cool in changing behavior of your students, of your faculty and staff, and incorporating different transportation modes into how you participate at UVU. So I hope that that's something that will be wildly successful on your campus.
Right. We are trying to change the culture. We've been increasing the rate of our parking fee at the same time of offering this free UTA pass. That's given us a reduction in 750 permits issued this past year. So we think that the culture is driving towards mass transit. So we're excited for the change, and this will complete the puzzle for us.
Part of the physical fitness program for the college.
That's correct.
I appreciate just
Get some credit for it.
Yeah.
Thank
So you will provide the free parking on the west side, west campus, in
That's
order to
correct.
encourage the
Our free
students?
parking permits for students are available on the west side. That started this school year, and they are using the UVX to get to campus right now. But many of them would take the bridge if the weather permitted, and based on schedule of when they wanted to cross. But we think this is a great addition and supplement to keeping our campus connected and to help us manage growth as we move forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. And Frank, I think it's so important that transit pass that you're providing for your student body, that's going to be a big motivator as we move forward into the future. And I know it's not an easy lift, but that I think is going to be important for the future.
Thank you.
Will you also encourage the faculties to park on the west campus and use the bridge as example?
Yeah, well, as we build out on campus, we say that our parking lots are future buildings. So as we build, we actually reduce the number of parking stalls available, and that pushes people to other modes of transportation. So it's not convenient to park at UVU, so we want you to park on the west or ride a bus or ride the train and then walk over.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I'm ready for the motion if you have done with the questioning.
I'd make a motion that we, based on all the discussion we've had and for the future, that we approve this change to the funding.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this is going to be enough this time, Terry, you think? The money? No more tunneling, no more other
Pneumatic tubes?
double
No
decking?
pneumatic tubes.
There are
That
no
would scare me.
guarantees, but I think we've done our due diligence, and I think we've got a project we can deliver.
What does it do to the timing, by the way? When is it still supposed to be finished?
I believe we're on a fall of, I'm looking for fall of
Well-
2020.
All 2020.
Yeah, opening of school 2020.
Okay.
Invite us to walk across the bridge.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you have a second?
I'm the second.
So we have a motion in this beautiful long span bridge. Hopefully it's going to really justify for the expenditure that we're trying to do, and hopefully it's going to be a legacy for the many, many moons to come. So is a motion and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Young. You can report that you did good job.
And that you had ecumenical support from Southern Utah University as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Item number 7.
Our next item, item number 7, moving down south, Region 4, SR 313, Dead Horse Point to Island in the Sky, the addition of funds from our state pavement account. This project is ready to advertise. The additional funds are needed to cover the original scope. However, we've seen increased costs in asphalt, and we are requesting this increase of $790,000 to cover those and expected asphalt cost bids, or the increase in our asphalt cost. Our ask today then is a motion to approve $790,000 to SR 313 Dead Horse Point Island in the Sky project as detailed.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on this item number 7. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Number 7 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8, also in Moab. This is when we were in Moab before, we talked about the addition of the sidewalk, the curb and gutter to address drainage issues and active transportation needs. On this particular project, we're asking for approval to move $4.5 million to this particular project 15329 US 191 North Moab to Colorado River Bridge. Not only to address the drainage and active transportation needs, we've also seen a cost increase of our right-of-way activities for this project. That being said, our ask for today is a motion to approve the addition of $6.6 million with it showing in our graphic $4.5 million of TIF and $2,161,000 from Moab City to this project to cover this increased scope and cost.
Is this on both sides of the highway there?
It's on the west side.
Just on the west side only? Okay.
But it will go the entire length of that.
But it'll go clear to the bridge?
Did the city of Moab have any investment in the current project value, or is this their first to the table?
It has always been known that they will come to the table. This is actually bringing that amount of money
Gotcha.
to support the
Great.
drainage portion of the project and their trail connectors.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we were originally not looking at curb and gutter and sidewalk on the west side, and when we got in the design, it deemed very important with all the development that is happening with the hotels that we stayed at down there in November for the tour, that it was very important for active transportation stuff to include curb and gutter and sidewalk on the west side.
I move to approve.
I second.
Now, is there going to be crosswalks in there? Because some of those hotels are on the east side.
We actually have a pathway on the east side, and we have a cross at the intermobile hub, the Lions Park area, and at 5th West. So we don't have any intermediate crossing in between there right now, but we would evaluate that as after we build the project.
So you don't need to build a bridge there to cross over?
No. So, Commissioner, Jason asked me earlier, especially on the last item, the Island in the Sky project, slightly different environment than the UVU thing that you took action on before. But we have seen, and back to your discussion about cost inflation and increases, we put kind of together a little bit of analysis on our 2018 asphalt cost to what we're seeing right now in 2019 for our major items of asphalt. So in 2018, we have two kind of major components, hot mix asphalt, HMA, and stone matrix asphalt, SMA, that we use quite a bit in the department. And last year we were seeing those range in about the $84 a range to about the $95 range. This year, so far on our bids, we're at $104 to $109. So, and we had estimated at the start of the year for all of our pavement programs that we would be at about $95 for each one of those. So they're coming in about $10 a ton higher than what we had actually started the season with our planning numbers. So we are certainly seeing asphalt in the rural part of the state right now. We're seeing higher numbers than we anticipated.
Well, and Rick, the southeast part of the state has always been the biggest challenge for us in terms of getting a good certainty on price. There's less competition down there, and also the quality of the material source. There's a material availability challenge down there. Has always made southeast Utah kind of more of a, and Danny knows it, I'm sorry, Commissioner McConkey. Yes, it's always been a little bit of a challenge in terms of getting really good competitive pricing.
Thank you for explanation. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Number 8 carries.
Item number 8 is a funding addition to the SR 10, 3200 South to 1150 South in Price. Last month in December, our commission meeting, we added $4.5 million to this project to address the engineer's estimate increase. This project is a construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC project. The contractor's bid has been evaluated, and we believe, Region 4 believes, and is recommending that the department award this project. However, and to do so, our ask for today is a motion to approve a $1.9 million increase to this project.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
And I just had a little reminder of what CMGC meant. And this is the most cost-effective way to do this project, right? Is this the construction manager, general contractor?
We have about 4 methods to deliver projects, and we use the design bid build method on the majority of those projects by numbers, but design build probably on the dollar amount.
Yeah, Rick, maybe start, when we decide, and like Rick said, we have 4 different procurement methods for construction, and we do a risk analysis up front, looking at what the project goals are and what the risks are to determine the most appropriate way to deliver that project. And in this case, this project was, I don't know why the reason was for CMGC was selected on this one.
We have quite a few utilities in the corridor, and also we're using this project to advance our new innovation called model-based design and construction methods, to where we actually build a 3D model of the project and actually try to build that with no plan sets, all automation on iPads, all integrated into the equipment that the contractor uses. And this was an environment that we felt like we could really push that innovation forward and challenge our contracting and subcontracting community to try to get into the 3D development process of construction. So that certainly has an effect on this project as well. There's a couple other pieces to it. This is right south of Price. It is the loop that goes to Ridge Road, which is their industrial park. So we get a lot of coal traffic and a lot of industrial traffic looping through Price into Ridge Road and then out to Wellington. So MOT, maintenance of traffic, is a very tough challenge on this narrow 2-lane road. We wanted to keep 2 lanes open in both directions at all time during the construction of this roadway, instead of shutting the road down and having a major impact to that industrial portion of the project, or the industrial park called Ridge Road. The other component that is a challenge is there's a big box culvert that is going to be installed at what we call unnamed wash. I don't know why Jason didn't name it when he was down there as a kid, but he should have. The Jason Davis wash is what we'll call it when we get done. But that's a very tight construction technique that the contractor has that also included some cost increases here. So when we came to the commission last month with the $4.5 million, it was to get us to the engineer's estimate so we actually could bid this project with the CMGC contractor, who is Kiewit. And through a lot of discussions and back and forth with an independent cost estimator and our estimators and Kiewit, and in fact going back and looking at various other scope elements of this job, we've got to where we opened that project 2 days ago, and this is the dollar amount that we anticipate we need to award that to Kiewit and build this project with the scope of work that we've identified.
Great. That was some really great information. Thank you.
Any further question from Rick or Ivan?
You ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve.
Second. Motion and the second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Number 9, approved.
Thank you. Item number 10 already has an introduction from John talking about the Cottonwood Canyons Transportation Study. This is a new project to be added to our STIP. PIN 17414, the Cottonwood Canyons Transportation Study, that is a study that will provide information between the transportation interactions between Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon. The funding will be coming from the recreational hotspots, that recreational hotspot project. And our motion today then, our ask is to approve to add the Cottonwood Canyons Transportation Study as a new project to the 2019 STEP.
I'm happy to make that motion after the earlier explanations, and also to remind us that that was a one-time money for the hot spots.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't that much there. So we can't come back. I just want to remind people that.
Thanks for the reminder.
So Ivan, would you please go up on the pin number? So you have the 16092 is a little Cottonwood, and then you have 17374. Is supposed to be big Cottonwood, or just Cottonwood Canyon, or just the whole name is? We need to differentiate that or not?
So John, you want to talk about this, or?
The pin number 17374, the second item, 1,000,005. The description, is that the accurate description there, Cottonwood Canyon?
Cottonwood Canyons, plural, yes, for both Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Okay.
A slight comment on the pin above it, 16092, Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS. That is simply where House Bill 3 money was placed as a placeholder, just so we could account for it, and that's why it's coming from there.
And if you'll recall the comment before, that money that the legislature appropriated, that $500,000, was to begin the design and construction of a parking structure somewhere in the Cottonwood Canyon area.
Okay, thank you. So there's a motion
I'll
already, the second. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 10 is approved.
Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item, item 8B, for your information, earlier we added $2 million talking about the difference between the rehabilitation and preservation project. This SR 102-84 to SR 82 project in Tremonton, and we would like, now that that project has the same and similar treatment as a project adjacent to it, we will be combining these two projects together and bidding it with the expectation of gaining efficiencies of these two projects.
Okay.
So just as an information to the commission, we'll be combining those two projects together.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Right.
you, Ivan. Good job.
Thank you.
So item number 9, we have Charles Stormont is going to decide on the corridor preservation.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Charles.
As usual, we like to start with an overview of the financial status of the Marta Del Rey Corridor Preservation Fund. As you will see, we had a balance forward of a little over $9 million. I'm happy to report that the next line item, you'll notice this spreadsheet is current as of the 10th of January. The pending fund reimbursement has been completed this week, so that money is now in the fund and available for corridor preservation. A little over $500,000 in revenue, property purchases just over $1 million, together with some expenses to keep these acquisitions moving, leaving a fund balance of approximately $18.5 million. We have a number of transactions that are in process that have already been approved by the Commission that result in the obligation of approximately $12.8 million. One that I'm happy to report, in particular, the Valley Grove acquisition. We are under contract. We are set to close probably in the next week. So that is a fairly large acquisition for the North County Boulevard project down in Utah County. There are a number of others that are all in process. Factoring in those obligated funds, there's approximately $5.7 million that would remain available in the fund, and we have 3 requests of the Commission today. Each of these requests have been run through our advisory council earlier this month, and they recommended approval. Thank you to Commissioner Barlows and Kramer, and I'd like to say thank you to Helen Peters, one of our advisory council members, who's here with us today from Salt Lake County. If the applications that we are requesting approval on today are approved, there would be a balance of approximately just under $3.9 million. Are there any questions on the fund?
Thank you.
Moving into the specific requests, our first item 9A involves I'm a big believer in the picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm going to scroll on down. This is a corridor preservation project that you will recall a few months ago. We acquired each of these 2 parcels in blue for the future Mountain Green interchange at Trappers Loop Road. The amazing Diane McGuire has received interest from one of the last significant parcels shown here in yellow. It sits on approximately 1 acre, has an appraised value of $460,700. It does have a structure on it. The fact sheet describes it as a home. I would say that's being generous. The structure does not contribute to any value according to the appraisal. But there would be a little bit of cost required to demolish that structure. Our property management team will look at it, assess whether there's potential rehabilitation that would be financially logical to do, see if there's an opportunity to lease the parcel until the project is ready to go. My prediction is that probably will not be, and we would proceed with demolition. But with that information, we would ask the Commission's approval to proceed with this acquisition of the parcel shown here of approximately 1 acre owned by Mr. Michael Jones at the appraised value of $460,700.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay.
Is there someone living in that house?
There is not. It is essentially a storage facility for the property owner.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the commissioners, you remember we toured this with members of the Morgan County Commission. This project is a very high priority for the commission, and if you approve this action, I'm pretty sure they would be quite excited that they see the progress on the project.
Yeah, just wondering.
Yes, they
I would underline quite. And may I also say I appreciate so much Charles and Diane, the amazing Diane's leadership on this, because property values are going up there dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's, as in many parts of the state, but it's great to have this completed in the way it's done.
You'll recall that Ivory Development has a significant development in the works in this area, which is one of the main reasons we like to use the Corridor Preservation Fund, is to get out in front of development to save costs for the department.
Appreciate your leadership on this. It is a gorgeous part of the world. It'll be interesting to see what happens with all the growth there.
Okay.
Try not to smile.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Number A is approved.
Moving next to item 9B, this is a much larger parcel with a home on it, approximately 13.92 acres in West Point, 4075 West, 1800 North in West Point. Funding for the West Davis corridor ends just to the south of this parcel, which is why it's in the corridor preservation process rather than within the project for acquisition.
Yeah.
I'm going to scroll down to the photo. You can see, again, it's a fairly large parcel. I will say this is a beautiful property. This landowner has put a lot of time and energy into making this just a fantastic place, sort of their dream home. I will say the landowner was not particularly excited that the alignment of the West Davis corridor wound up impacting their property. However, they have an opportunity, the husband has an opportunity to retire early. They are building a home in Lake Havasu, and they are now interested in selling. So again, the Corridor Preservation Fund provides an opportunity to reduce the impact on these landowners so they can pursue their retirement plans. The parcel is appraised for $1,170,200. And we would ask the Commission's approval to proceed to acquire the property at that appraised value.
So we're getting the whole green area parcel rather
We,
than just the one in the...
that's correct. We would acquire the whole thing from them. Obviously, if we acquired a portion, we'd cut off their driveway. And I will say for the West Davis corridor, the future corridor to the north, there are opportunities for some wetlands mitigation that this property might offer. So while a portion is outside of the corridor, it does present some environmental mitigation opportunities for the department as well.
And they will vacate the property for us to rent, or?
They would. We would turn this over to our property management team to try and generate some interim rental income from the parcel.
Thank you.
I might want to move there.
Okay.
I move to approve.
I'd
Move-
second.
Move to Ian, move to approve.
Move to approve.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Number B is approved.
Item 9C is a home at 568 West, 1800 North in Clinton for the future widening of 1800 North. I'm going to, again, scroll down to the image. I-15 sits off just to the right of this image. This corridor is an area where we've seen a lot of growth. The 1800 North is going to need to be widened. There are a number of residences here. This particular property owner listed their home for sale, then learned of the future project. Again, another example of hardship imposed by the announcement of a future project by UDOT. The home has appraised for $173,000, and this again would provide an opportunity for UDOT to alleviate that hardship. And we would ask the Commission's approval to purchase the property for $173,000.
Do we have any of those adjacent parcels already, or? that's future?
Each of the parcels in blue are properties that we have been able to acquire. The ones that show in yellow are ones where we are engaged in some discussions, not quite to the point where we're seeking approval, but at least have property owners who have expressed an interest in discussing a possible acquisition.
Move for approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C is approved.
Thank you, Commissioners. That is all of the corridor preservation that we have for today. I do have a proposed transfer that requires Commission approval to proceed. This is a parcel owned by an entity, and I have to apologize, I don't know if it's JD 13 LLC or if they want to pronounce each of the Roman numerals there. On the technology corridor at approximately exit 282 on I-15, I will scroll down again to give you a visual. In preparing for today, I realized as you scroll down and look at the legend, the total acquisition size and the temporary easement size reported there are very far off of what we are actually acquiring. The image reflects what is actually to be acquired. The portions in blue are actually 0.0823 acres, so less than 1/10 of an acre. The temporary easements shown kind of in yellowish orange are 0.066 of an acre, so again, well under 1/10 of an acre. This is a portion of the technology corridor that requires a lot of property to make it work. There is a park and ride lot, just as a point of reference, around the corner here that's unaffected by this trade, but just to orient you a little bit to where this is. A couple of things about this trade that I think are important to your consideration for approval. First, they're obviously very different in size. The portion in green that UDOT currently owns and would like to trade has no access. The only way to access it would be through this adjoining property owner's property. This is a natural person to acquire such a parcel. As such, it doesn't have very significant value. Properties that are landlocked tend not to be worth very much. In terms of the value we are receiving, we are imposing no access lines for obvious reasons next to the freeway on-ramp with the property that we need to acquire for the corridor. So again, the value received in imposing that no access line is fairly significant. And I would point out that there is a slight discrepancy in the values the landowner plans to bring. These are reported on the fact sheet. a little under $21,000 to closing to make up the discrepancy in the appraised values of each of the parcels. You'll see the property that we would like to trade to the landowner is worth a little bit over $63,000. The property we seek to acquire is appraised for a little under $43,000. The difference in value will be brought to closing by the landowner. I would add there is an eminent domain case that we have pending. This would resolve that matter in a very amicable and fair way. For that reason, we would ask your permission to proceed with the trade as outlined in the fact sheet.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussions, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 10 is approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Charles. Good job. Okay, we're going to ask Shane Young to come down and report on the audit.
Do we have that audit schedule? Perfect. Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be with you again. If you recall from last month, we presented the 2019 audit schedule proposal for your consideration. It includes 10 projects, 7 of them which are carryovers from our prior year's audit schedule, with 3 new additions based on revisions and risk assessments we conducted with each of our senior leaders as well as their management teams. I hope you've had a chance to review the project list. I am happy to go over each single one of them with you. I find that in doing so, it doesn't produce the best results for us, but why don't I just open it to any questions you have before you make an approval and ensure that you have a full understanding of the scope and what we're trying to accomplish.
I thought this was a really impressive, broad look at your plan for the coming year.
Thank you. We try to incorporate risks that we felt were relevant for the 2019 calendar year. And the approach as we identified risk is, with all of the activities going on, what are the things that members of management can deal with and address as they go throughout the year, but what are some areas that we can provide additional oversight or additional opinion that can help them to strengthen perhaps absent controls or control vulnerabilities that we can detect. And so a question I get often is, are there one risk that's quite a bit higher than the other? Yes, but in this case, all of these are important areas. Even though they're numbered through 1 through 10, it's possible as we get to an opportunity to look at a project, we'll coordinate with our senior leader. If they're not ready for us to look at an area, we'll move on to another area. So it's exciting to see what we're able to do for this year and the results that we find based on this list. So thank you.
Shane, do you have a checklist that you have to go every year to audit, or you just take the concern area, the audit those area departments that has most kind of been concerned the past years?
You're asking if we have a checklist of mandatory audits we have to do? With our function in internal audit, it is centrally based on a risk perspective, which complies with Utah Code Chapter 5, that every executive agency will have an internal audit function. So there isn't a prescribed benchmark in terms of how many audits we do. The most important measure for me in internal audit is what impact it has and how it improves UDOT. And so a lot of it is the value added that it gives to the senior leaders when we're finished with the review.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Chair, I move for approval. So we're approving the 2019 performance audit project plan. Is that what so I move for approval of this.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and the second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Shane. Good
Thank
job
you.
in your department. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess Nathan, are you coming back for item 12? Oh, he's assigned someone else. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Good mid-morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Ben Hewitt. I work in the pre-construction division of UDOT project development. And I will be discussing the review of UDOT Administrative Rule 907-66. So the purpose of this administrative rule is to establish procedures for procuring design and engineering related consultants for the things that we do at UDOT. And it also ties together the federal and state procurement code to match the funding sources that we use for those efforts. A few of the highlights of the rule revision are this revision adds definition to the specific types of consultant professional services that use a qualification-based selection method in our process. Another highlight of the revision is anytime that we get a chance to review and revise a rule, we took that opportunity to reorganize the rule in a more logical fashion, and there were a lot of code references that had moved around within federal and state code that we needed to correct and point in the right place. And then lastly, one of the changes is there was a recent increase of the federal simplified acquisition threshold amount, which allows for a streamlined procurement. And this rule has historically aligned our state small purchase cap with the federal simplified acquisition threshold. So it was perfect timing to get that up so that those once again align. Those are the highlights of this rule review. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm with our Central Maintenance Division. We've recently done a review of our Adopt a Highway program in the administrative rule that manages and authorizes our Adopt a Highway program. You may know our Adopt a Highway program by the signs that are along the side of the road that local community groups can sponsor to go do litter pickup. This program has existed formally within UDOT since the late 1970s, and it's been a great partnership between us and the local communities where they can assist us in helping keep the highway clean, and they can also feel part of their community and that they're contributing and have a service opportunity along our right-of-way. Our administrative review of the rule, I identified some minor legal language that we needed to update, but there were two more significant changes that we made to the rule that I want you to know about. The first one is we clarified that these groups, for their own safety, should not be crossing a divided highway in the median to go from one side of the road to the other. We felt this was an important clarification for their safety. We also clarified if they come across any hazardous materials along the side of the roadway that they were to notify UDOT immediately, who would then either talk to our representatives at law enforcement, health department, or we can get one of our hazmat contractors out to help clean it up. The other impact that we identified is more significant. I've already heard some concerns from some local groups, so I want to make sure you know about it. Our Attorney General's office and risk management recommended that we change the minimum age for those that are participating in these activities from 11 years old to 14 years old. This puts us in line with state code that prescribes different levels of autonomy that a minor child can have, and their roles and responsibilities in legal and statute and making their own decisions, and where we can limit our liability for their exposure out on the highway. In fact, not even a parent can sign away a minor child's ability to sue UDOT if there's any unfortunate events that happen on the side of the road. But at age 14, the child is considered more legally responsible for their own behavior, and thus limiting UDOT's exposure. So from a technical legal perspective, we were asked to increase the minimum age of our participants here. We understand that will affect some scouting groups who have adopted some of our sections of highway for litter pickup. We will roll this change out slowly as contracts with these groups renew. We won't make it retroactive for those who currently have contracts, but those contracts as they renew with these groups, we'll make them aware of the new rule.
Questions?
Nope, it sounds good.
I have a confession to make, Carlos. Maybe I need to do it right now in the public. During the 10 years of cleanup on the highway side, I found plenty cash monies, and nobody has asked me to give it to them or deposit some account. Where do I go to do that?
Give me a call. I'll
Oh.
take care of it.
Did you see how the hands go
At
up?
the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon.
Yeah, that's where we
Wait for
need
that
it.
sign
That's
there.
what we need. The new sign repair.
Honestly, there's some valuable stuff on there. If you're interested to find things, you don't have to have those gold metal detectors. Just
Really?
go do the highway cleanup. Anyway, that's the
That's in
confession.
St.
What about-
George. I mean, up here, we're a little bit more cautious.
Well, I guess it was so valuable that Purgatory and Sheriff Department took over the job now because I made a confession there and they said, we're going to do the job now. So that was my confession. Thank you, Scott.
Well, it's an important role. We really appreciate what you're doing there. That is a nice community involvement, and I think once they've cleaned it up, they're not going to be throwing trash out their car windows when they're driving down the road. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 13, Lisa and Brian, I guess you have the floor.
Congrats,
Yes.
Heather set me up. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm
Good morning.
pretty excited to be here in my new role.
Congratulations.
Excited to have you. It's been about a month, and I have to say that the Region 1 folks are absolutely fantastic, and they do a great job. So I get to stand up and talk about all the things that they've been working on, and so pretty happy to be able to do that. And I have the smart guy back there for backup if you guys have hard questions for me. So
Who is that?
Nathan.
Sorry, he left.
No, he didn't.
On your own.
So we'll start off with our pavement program. As you can see on our high volume, we're in really good shape. We're trending upward. We're going to be in the green after we deliver our 2019 projects this year. So that's moving in the right direction, and it's, you know, targeted to stay there for several years. So our surface area goals have been at 330. We did not meet those this last year. We knew that would be the case. We have some projects that we get credit for in 2019, even though they were 2018 projects, because of when they'll be completed. And 2019 is a little bit low, but we anticipate making that up with some of our deobligation funds and transportation solutions projects that we have getting ready.
Lisa,
Yes?
it might be good to just remind the commission, when you talk about surface area commitment, what are you talking about?
I don't know if I'm the right person to define the surface area.
Okay, so a surface area is 12 foot wide by 1 mile long. And when the commission is allocating money, we're looking at how many surface areas we need to touch on a yearly basis in order to maintain the targets on our pavement conditions. So essentially, when the regions have surface area commitments, they're trying to in touch, whether it be preservation, rehabilitation, reconstruction. Those are the touches on that amount of area of pavement.
So it was 1 mile by
12 foot wide.
12 feet.
There's a surface
It
area.
was expanded too, wasn't it? Didn't it only used to be 10?
Well, that's how we define a surface area. A traffic lane, the standard is usually 12 foot wide, if that's what you're referring to. But you know, surface areas could include shoulders as well as gore points and those things.
Thanks.
What is the light blue other? What would that consist of?
That's Logan.
Yeah, right.
So those are projects like our TIF projects. They come in when you reconstruct or build a new road or those sorts of things. They come in as the other.
So in the pavement condition, the surface area commitment, we're taking advantage of those capacity projects to also give us a benefit on the pavement condition. That's what it's showing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we recognize that every year we're not going to be able to meet the 330 surface area goal just because balancing the right treatment at the right time. So reality is we look at a 4-year rolling average, and over all of our 4 years, we're still above this goal. So our low volume roads are also in pretty good shape. We're keeping up on those. We do drop a little bit in 2019 based on what we have programmed. We have to do more rehabilitation projects in 2019 than we can do preservation. So you'll see on the surface area chart that we are a little bit low this year. We do anticipate adding to this with some of our Code 1 money, our own forces doing chip seals and some paving jobs in the spring. So this is our sustainability index. The goal is 1. You can see we're staying here, and this is a measure of the life of our system. So every year, every surface area loses a year of life, and our goal is to put at least that much back into our system based on the treatments that we do. Some will be more than others. If you do a 7-year treatment on a section, that adds 7 years of life per surface area, stuff like that. So we really balance the right treatment at the right time to maintain the overall life and health of our system, and we're doing really good there. So this is our current transportation solutions list. The ones in 2019 are funded. This is what we're working on now. The one on top there for Commissioner Kramer, we are replacing some overhead signs. They're in pretty bad shape.
Getting off to a great start, Lisa, may I say.
There's other sign replacements that we're able to do as well. We added those to some of our paving jobs when those are in bad shape. One of the bigger jobs on here is the dual right lanes to Harrison Boulevard. That'll be a pretty exciting project to have completed for all those on their way to Weber State every day. It's a pretty congested area. The list below in 2020, 2021, those are our prioritized projects that you'll see coming back in the workshop. A lot of those you'll notice are some safety items, some more signs. We have some opportunities down at the bottom with those shoulder improvements to combine those with some paving jobs in the Ogden Valley to be able to provide shoulders for bikes and to make some trail connections in that area with all of the recreation that goes on there.
I see there's $1 million on there for I-84 fence replacement. Is that animal fence being put in there or something? Why would they replace a fence?
Come on.
That's a combination of both wildlife fence in coordination with DWR, but also standard right-of-way fence. We have a lot of right-of-way fence that distinguishes it's the barrier between the interstate right-of-way and the adjacent property owners that was placed out there with the original IE-84 construction. So it's decades old.
It's used up.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Got a question on the Summit Snow Fence, Logan. Is that new fence or is it replacing? I'm just trying to think of which fence. Is it?
Well, the Logan snow fence up there by Tony Grove, up by the summit, we get a lot of crosswinds across US 89 and 91. So the snow fence is just similar like what you would see on I-80 throughout Wyoming. It would be that wooden type.
It's just new.
It will be new proposed snow fence.
I'm just trying to think we're replacing or putting some new somewhere, so that's all I was just curious about.
Yep.
Thanks.
As a matter of fact, I just drove that yesterday, and it was completely under the snow level.
Yeah, wow. So we're excited about funding that project. It will be probably a 2-year project because of the coordination efforts that we'll have to go through with the U.S. Forest Service to place the infrastructure on Forest Service property.
Thank you.
That Legacy Highway sign upgrade of $400, is that because trucks or speed limit's going to change on that road?
That's a placeholder for if changes do occur for now.
I didn't hear that.
Placeholder.
It's a placeholder on our list for now if the changes do occur and we need to either replace or remove some signs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, 'cause it's not a done deal.
Yeah, I see it's not funded, but
Any other transportation solutions questions? And remaining, the 600,000 remaining will be between now and June 30th for us to work on maintenance emergencies, those types of things, and further partnerships with our local governments. You could see on the list that a lot of the focus is partnerships with the locals. We spend a lot of contingency on some studies, and there's also some smaller maintenance spot project type things. A couple of the key studies that we have going on is the Logan Main Street corridor study. We're partnering with Logan on moving that forward, and then the Powder Mountain truck lane study that also includes Garden City. That one's going to get kicked off next week, so we'll have hopefully a solution for that moving forward. Some of the highlights for the year, we did finish the environmental impact statement for SR 30 in Cache Valley. The RFQ for the design team will be sent out in the next few weeks, and we'll get moving on design for this project.
You're getting your wish.
Our 20th West in Syracuse SR 108 project was completed. This is a pretty significant project for this area going north-south. One of the highlights for the construction was, you can see the school right there in this picture. We were able to close down the road completely as soon as school got out and have it completely constructed by the time school started. That was a pretty significant benefit to that area, and a pretty cool thing to be able to accomplish. This one is the Trappers Loop paving job. Just by sheer size, it was significant. It was about a $10 million construction project with a shortened time window for construction up there with where it's located. I got the opportunity to drive it the other day. It's really nice. The other thing that I'm sure you've all heard about and will continue to hear about as we can do the US 89 project is the interchange at I-84. We do have a study going on. It'll be finished here in the next month or so to provide future recommendations. We'll have 2050 recommendations for this interchange, as well as some short-term solutions, 10 to 15-year solutions that'll help us. The thought is, as soon as we open the US 89 project, this is a major bottleneck, and so, we want to be proactive and have a plan to help address this, so we're not just having a major choke point at the end of a really great project.
Let's ask a learning term for me. When you say an intersection is starving, what does that mean?
Well, there's not enough capacity there to move all the traffic through.
So
that
if
needs
the
to
traffic's
make it.
backing up and
McDonald's on the
starving
Yeah.
for enough lane capacity.
And so then you have failure in your.
Thank you.
Some challenges that we have in the area, specifically in Davis County, is our east-west corridors. We have a lot of great north-south projects going on. With all the development that's occurring and the growth going in these areas, we do have some east-west corridors that are going to need some attention. A lot of these we've started studies on, so that we'll be able to come with a solution and a proposed cost. Two of them will essentially tie into West Davis Corridor. SR 127 Antelope is currently where West Davis is targeted to end construction, and so that would be a key area. Right now there's a section of it that would be 2 lanes in the middle of sections of where it's 5, and so we're doing a study there to get a cost and stuff moving forward. SR 193 currently does not extend to where West Davis would tie in, so that's another one we're looking at. So you'll be hearing a lot more about those in the next little while. And then the last one I wanted to talk to you about is SR 108. We just finished the section in Syracuse. We have the section to the north funded. However, there will be a gap once that one's complete to the north. With the termination of West Davis at either Antelope or 193, this becomes a really major north-south corridor for folks in this area, even more than it is today. So we'll want to look at getting this gap taken care of. So. Any questions?
Ambitious projects, good luck.
We're glad you're here, Lisa.
It's exciting times up there, for sure.
Well,
Yes.
Good luck and good job today.
So great.
Thank you.
Lots of growth, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, did you warm up?
Well, good morning, Commissioners and Chairman.
Brian?
Probably want to start off maybe just seeking approval if I could get Lisa to just come back up and do my presentation for me. She knows more about it than I do, so. So we'll start off taking a look at our pavement conditions in the region. The majority of our pavement is in the high volume category. And if you look at our graphs, I think we've got our measures dialed in fairly well. We continue to keep inching our way into meeting all of our goals, to have everything above the red as well as getting some of the green up into the yellow. So we're really close right now, and over the next 3 or 4 years, you can see that we're gonna be in and meet that goal. As far as our high volume surface areas, our goal is to hit around the 400 surface areas per year, and you can see on average we're maintaining that goal pretty closely. In 2018, we definitely had a big year. That was part due to our large I-215 project. But all in all, we try to maintain really closely to that 400 surface areas, which reflects the results from the previous slide. For our low volume, we have very few low volume roads in Region 2, and the good part of that is that when you do a few projects, you see a huge spike in our results. So you can see back in 2016 and 17, we did a lot of projects where we did some hot in place recycled projects out on 199 and 196. Well, that made up probably over half of our surface areas. So we immediately saw a huge improvement in our numbers. The bad part about this is it also decreases just as fast as we can improve it. So, but we've got a good handle on it. And then as far as our low volume surface areas, we try to maintain around 25 surface areas a year, and doing a fairly good job there. And same thing with our sustainability index of trying to meet that goal of hovering around one. We are close on our high volumes. We can low volumes, again, we're kind of up and down just based on how few we have. Now let's want to jump in and just talk a little bit about our transportation solution projects. This is a list of the projects that are funded, and they're either complete or we are working on design, getting ready to go out to construction this year. Wanted to highlight just a few of them. The first one is our SR 201 frontage road project. If you remember, 18 months, 2 years ago, we were here talking about a trade we were working on with Kennecott, in that we would provide them a frontage road, and in turn they would give us right-of-way that we needed for our 201 extension, as well as to be able to remove some of their bridges on SR 111. So we've finished that agreement. We've been working with them, finished the right-of-way, and currently under design. Our plan is to start building that frontage road for them this summer. And then SR 68, which is Redwood Road. We've just finished up our large project where we converted our little 3-lane section into a 7-lane section from Bangerter to 26 South. And once we open that facility, now we have this little gap right in the middle that we have only 5 lanes. So we go from 7 lanes to the north into this 5-lane section and then transition back out to 7. So we're going to go back in this summer and we're going to restripe. We don't have to widen anything. We'll restripe, use the extra width that we have in our shoulders, and make that a consistent 7-lane cross section. And this is pretty significant for us because this now allows us, we have a consistent 7-lane cross section all the way from Bangerter Highway all the way up to right around California Avenue up north. So major facility. And then the next one I wanted to highlight, this one's for you, Commissioner Kramer.
I've been looking at it since you put the
There's
chart up.
proof. We have an I-215 sign replacement project on the list that's been funded, and we're currently right now working on the design and hopefully get that bid, and we plan to go to construction in 2020 on that.
I'll try and hold off the governor until then, but boy, it's going to be tough.
We'll do everything we can to accelerate.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your focus on that.
Let's see. And then the last one on the list was the one that we had on the agenda this morning that you approved. We're excited about this, to be able to add that Ox Lane on I-80 between 201 and SR 36. We just finished up our process at the region where we went in and tried to develop our new transportation projects that we would like to present this commission workshop coming up. We used our dashboard to help us try to identify some projects that we could get some choke point alleviation, as well as take a look at our asset projects, and we did a prioritization process using Decision Lens, and this is the list that we will be talking about moving into the workshop, and what we'll be recommending. For our contingency program, we have quite a significant list. I tried to only focus on the projects that we have on our plans to deliver this year. And like Lisa mentioned, our goal is to try to find projects that we can partner with our local entities, as well as we use it for emergencies, and we do a lot of studies with this money. And just want to highlight a couple of them. 5600 West Sidewalk Project. We've been working on this one for a number of years. Senator Maine has been pushing for this for quite some time. We've been working with Salt Lake County, Kearns, and West Valley City, and I think we've come up with all parties to be able to bring some funds to the table. We'll be contributing $100,000 towards that project, and we hope to get that project started and completed shortly. We had some pretty significant wildfires in the region this past year, and we've got 2 locations that we are going to be using some contingency money to go back and fix the fencing caused by the damage of the wildfires, one of which was up in Summit County around the Silver Creek area. 3 or 4 years ago, we were in there doing the project, installing that nice, beautiful wildlife fence, and the fire came through that section, and some of it remained intact, and some of it is completely destroyed. So we're going to be working on getting a contract on board and go up and try to replace the damaged posts that were burned in that fire. And we also had the same thing happen out along I-80 and 201 out by Lake Point. We had a fire through there that came through and damaged a lot of our right-of-way fence. So again, we'll be back in there trying to replace that damaged fence. Now we'll focus on our projects.
Brian, go back. You had an item that I thought you might talk about.
Oh,
the 7800 South pumps. Most people probably don't understand what's going on there.
Sorry, I'm meaning to highlight that one. Yeah, we have a pretty elaborate pump system around 7800 South. This drains a lot of our drainage from I-15. This was constructed with the original I-15 project back in 2020 time, or
No, 97 and
90,
opened
yeah.
up in May of 01.
2000 time frame before the Olympics. And we call this our Taj Mahal pump station. We have 3 giant pumps in there that it takes those 3 pumps to keep all of the water from flooding some of the local streets in Midvale. And these have been a problem for us in the past. We were here, I think, a few years ago. We used some contingency money to go in and update our monitoring system in there. And now with this money, we are in dire need of going in and doing some repairs to the pumps. All the bearings are getting shot, and so we're going to be using this $150,000 to go in and rebuild the 3 pumps that we have in our Taj Mahal facility. So
It's not your only pump location, but this is the big one.
it's not, but this is the big one.
So 150,000 is going to be enough for 3 pumps to rebuild?
Yeah, the estimates that we've got to date is about 50,000 per pump.
Really?
So we'll pull one out at a time, making sure that we have 2 functional at all times, and then we'll reinstall and pull the next one out. So
What's that Bluetooth sensors agreement?
So we use a lot of Bluetooth data in the region. Summit County does as well. They've installed a lot of Bluetooth readers in Summit County, and what we did is we partnered with them in that we might as well share the data. So they were working on a big contract to install some new readers, and we noticed that there were some holes in their system that we would like to have added. So we worked with them and paid to put in a couple of the new sensors, and in return we got access to their whole network. So it was a good partnership. Moving on to our projects, I wanted to highlight a handful of projects that we've completed this last year. First one is our Bangerter 4 projects. I've got 3 of them listed right here. Reason being is we finished 70th the year before. So this year we were able to complete 54th, 90th, and 114th. And super excited about how those turned out and what a benefit this has become to commuters as well as the locals in the area. We did a quick and dirty look at using our Bluetooth data to kind of to be able to see the difference before the project and then the day that we opened up. So we're looking at a stretch basically from 47th to 126 South. So you'll still see in that stretch, we still have 62nd, 98th, 104th, and 126th that is causing backups and delays. But even with those in play, you can see that by adding these 4 new interchanges over the last year, we've increased the speeds through that entire reach 5 to 6 miles an hour. And the 4 remaining interchanges in that area, we've got 3 of those funded and working on getting those out to construction as soon as possible. And we feel like when we install those, that you'll see that blue line pretty much become solid across there at about 55 miles an hour. So we're really excited about that. Touch base a little bit on this project. This was our Redwood widening project down between Bangerter and 126 South. This was a little narrow 3-lane cross section, and we made the decision to go to 7 lanes once we realized that if whatever widening that is going to take place through there, we're going to end up impacting people's homes. So there was hundreds of homes along this corridor, so that we had to relocate. And so we figured that looking at our traffic numbers, that it was only a matter of time until we'd need this full 7-lane section. So we went ahead and constructed and built the 7 lanes. And once again, just kind of showing the data of before and after the project. We did this last minute on the project, and to go back and look at 2016 data is complex, because you got to go back in and you got to crank through all of the data. So due to the quick turnaround, I asked Brad to see if he could get something put together for us. And so we just picked a handful of days just to get a good idea of what it was before versus it is today. And last night, of course, last minute, we got all the data ran for the entire year, and the results actually show better than what's on this graph. So we were actually able to see around a 7 mile an hour difference through this corridor before and after the project, which is significant. Our I-15 southbound project, this is a 2-year project where we're adding a lane all the way from SR 201 down to 123rd South. Part of the commitment of the contractor was to get in there the first year and actually get the lane built and opened up to the traveling public from 90th down to 123rd. They were able to do that, and the results of just adding that extra lane through this area is dramatic. You can see before the project in the PM peak that we had speeds that were down in the 30 miles an hour range. Now with that added lane through there, and I drive this every night, and I think the number is even low. You don't even hardly hit your brakes. You drive through there so quickly. But the data is showing that on average is the lowest we get in the peak period is about 58, 59 miles an hour, which is pretty incredible. So we've ran into a few issues on this project, dealing with our UP Railroad. We are on track to finish this project. Part of the scope was to build the section of I-15, and then also we had a section of 7200 South that we were going to widen to 7 lanes, which included rebuilding 2 of UP's bridges over 72nd. We've been negotiating with them for almost 3 years before we let this project. The agreements actually were in legal review at the time when we awarded the project, only to find out, over the past little while, you probably heard about the layoffs that they did internally. Thousands of their employees were laid off. Delays on 72nd trying to acquire those agreements. And I had to throw this one in here. We're pretty tickled to finish up the climbing lane project, which included our wildlife crossing.
Yep. How many have crossed so far? Do we have a number?
I hope millions.
That's what we'll call
Jason would probably have a good idea. Now I just wanted to focus a little bit on some of the projects that we're working on to deliver this next construction season or this year. First up is our I-15 northbound project, where we're going to be adding a lane from Bangerter Highway all the way up to about 90th South, and then constructing a CD system to try to alleviate the weave issues that we have around 90th, 72nd, and the 215 merge. We are scheduled to award a contract end of February and plan on beginning construction this spring. And it'll be a 2-year project. And I'm hoping it'll have as dramatic effect on the northbound side as we're seeing on the southbound. Mountain View Corridor, we awarded this project a month or two ago to Kiewit Clyde joint venture. They are working on the design elements right now and are planning to start construction as soon as the snow stops flying. And their schedule right now shows a completion of early summer of 2021.
Brian, explain to me that when you get the two contractors working on the same project, how does that work? Who is the principal contractor? Who's the secondary?
So with a joint venture, it is, for us, it is one entity. I mean, we have a contract with one entity, and which is comprised of two contractors. They figure out behind the scenes on who the lead is on that and how many, what percentage of work they take on individually. But for us, it's the same as having one contractor. And our contractors do an amazing job. Early on, we were always worried about that relationship, but they've got it figured out. We don't know, most of the time we don't know that there's two entities there. They're one contract, one contractor working to deliver our project. So, 5600 West. This project we are widening. This goes between SR 201 and I-80. And one of the major elements of this project is the bridge crossing over the UP Railroad. Once again, we're in the similar situation with UP Railroad on agreements. This one was unique because if you can see off to the side here, this is right up next to their large intermodal center where they transfer a lot of the packages from truck to heavy rail. And they have plans. If you can see on the picture right here, that bridge is a lot longer than what we would need to cross their rail lines. So we've been working with them again for the last couple of years. They want to expand their intermodal center and increase the number of tracks that go under the bridge. So we'd worked out an agreement with them that they would contribute $8 million to the project to lengthen that structure. To accommodate their expansion, but again, we're in that same situation with them, having to struggle to get those agreements finalized. We are ready to advertise this project. We were scheduled to advertise in February, so we are just holding off right now until we get a better level of comfort of where those agreements are. And again, based on where those end up, this project could possibly be delayed because of those agreements, because we don't want to move forward without having an executed agreement with UP.
Good.
Brian, is the reason for the new alignment the bridge?
It is.
Okay.
So by delaying, we're going to have more cost, and they're going to be responsible to pay for their share of the cost?
That would be a new occurrence. No, we've had some discussions at very high levels of UP, and their reduction in force happened very quickly, and obviously some of their upper management were not involved in those discussions. They did not have a plan for how to deal with ongoing activities.
My experience has been, though, that some of those laid-off employees are now contractors, and so we've had some good success working with them as contractors that we didn't expect in the past. So.
Yeah, we're definitely in that situation, Commissioner. A lot of the original folks that we started working with are now consultants to our team to try to help push this through, but they're not having much luck. So, anyway.
We're going to keep pushing.
Yeah, but it's nice to have those individuals there that have the history that can help us moving forward. So, Mid-Valley Highway, we are scheduled to advertise that in February as well. We're just waiting on getting our 404 permit from the Corps, and we'll advertise and hopeful to get that under construction this coming summer. And a lot of this work, you can see the construction is spread out over 2.5 years. Most of that is because we're dealing with such unstable soils out there that we're estimating that our settlement time is in the close to 18 months. So you'll see a lot of material go in the first year, and then you'll see it sitting there for an extended duration. So. And then the last project I wanted to highlight is for moving forward is our Bangerter 3 projects. We're in the process right now. We finished all 3 environmental documents for the 3 locations. We've combined all of them into one project. Our goal is to award this contract in December this coming year, and hope to have people mobilized building it the following spring of 2020. And then my last slide right here is our super small, low cost needs for the region. We'll be spending a lot of time between now and workshop talking about these, but these projects you'll see in our TIF priorities list, starting with our Bangerter highway improvements. The 4 that I've got detailed on there will complete converting Bangerter over to a full freeway system. And then our I-15 northbound CD project, this is basically an addition to what we are going to work on this next summer, where we're building the CD system from 90th to 215. What this project will do is will lengthen that CD system all the way to Bangerter Highway. We've talked in the past about I-15 managed lanes, Mountain View corridor between 102nd South and Porter Rockwell. This is a project that will convert and build the freeway section in the middle there. We're experiencing a lot of congestion through that area based on how quickly the development is happening down there and how quickly the number of stoplights are being placed. A note to this project, we can't start construction on this until after the connection into Utah County is built. And then I-80 Parley's Interchange, we're in the process right now of completing or working on our environmental document for this project. And then we've talked in the past about our SR 201 extension down to SR 36. So those are, again, our small, inexpensive list for your consideration, and we'll be having a lot more discussions about all of them in the near future.
Super low project.
Any questions?
Good stuff.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Having fun?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks. You're welcome. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman.
Every day.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, we have one more. Yes.
I think it's, as you sit here, when you talk about one project here and there, it's hard to get a full picture, and I think this gives a little idea of the size of the program these region directors are leading and bringing, being successful at doing. It's just amazing. And they're kind of low-key about doing it, but they run a pretty amazing large business, each one of these regions. I was wondering, maybe Terry could spend a few minutes and just kind of give us a comprehensive picture. We've been working towards our workshops. And so, Terry, wherever you want, you have a microphone there.
It's a little odd. I feel like I'm looking at the wall talking to you if I do it from down there. Heather, I'm wondering if I could put you on, am I running this or are you running it? I'm running it? Okay. I was just going to show you really quickly what we're trying to build up to with all these presentations, our STIP workshop. So just to try to keep this organized for you, we will take all the presentations from the regions and from, for instance, structures and traffic and safety and pavements. We'll put all those in one place for you. And let me see if I can get to it and just show you quickly where that would be, so that as we work our way through here, you can reference it as you need to. Now you can see how I get to the UDOT website every time. So if you go to the Transportation Commission portion of it, which hopefully you guys are familiar with, oops. Oh, I didn't want to. Odd, I feel like I'm looking at.
That's just on
Sorry. Oops, okay. The second one that says Transportation Commission. Okay, so this area where it says program briefing, that's where we're building all the materials for STIP workshop. So as we have information, we're now we'll add another section over here where we'll put each one of the briefings that the region has given to you and each of the groups when they talk about their needs and accomplishments. So then they're all in one place for you if you want to go back through there and reference those. And again, we'll be building all of the stuff in this area, program briefing, as we work our way up to STIP workshop. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Good job. Thank you.
Very helpful.
So under item number 14 now we have B, autonomous shuttle demonstration. Troy Peterson is going to give us that report.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Troy Peterson. I'm the director of the Traffic Management Division. That's weird to say at this point. I've been here about a week now, so really excited to be here to kind of kick off, discuss a little more of this cool little project we have. Like I said, I have the pleasure today to talk to you a little bit about our autonomous shuttle pilot project. And you may have remembered back in December, Rob White, when he was doing his presentation, he kind of laid the groundwork for this project, kind of introduced it. I want to take a little bit more time today to provide a little more information on that project. UDOT continues to be a national leader in transportation technology and at the forefront of the automated and connected vehicle development implementation. We believe automated vehicles will soon be a reality on all of our roadways. I want to jump over here to play a little clip for you. I'll let this run as I talk. So this project, we partnered with UTA to bring Easy Mile to Utah. Now, Easy Mile is a company, is a specialist in autonomous vehicles. And this pilot project is scheduled to last about a year, so throughout the 2019 timeframe. And during this time, there are a few things we want to evaluate. One of those being working with UTA and looking at how we could utilize Easy Mile at the shuttle at their transit as a transit system alternative or an element of that, and see how effective that would be. It's like kind of a first mile, last mile type philosophy there. Other things we want to do is look at the research some of the aspects of the shuttle operations itself. Every time you get one of this system out there running the shuttle, we're able to learn more in terms of maybe things they weren't expecting at first. I think one of the case studies, I think in Minnesota, where they had this shuttle running during the Super Bowl last year, and some of the things they learned was how to deal with snow and how to recognize snowflakes and whatnot. So some of those things that aren't always
you know, inherent when you're in a lab setting, but this is really something we're excited to bring out here and get it. And I guess the third part, another major focus point for this deployment is to introduce this technology to the public and get as many people as we can to experience this technology firsthand. Obviously, the more public trust and support we get for this, it'll greatly influence its deployment. And so, at the end of the day, we believe that this connected and autonomous vehicle technology will save lives and increase mobility. I want to get a chance here to watch this. I'm going to cut it short here and jump over to just a picture here.
Looks like the book.
So this is just a kind of a picture of the shuttle itself. Basically, looking at it, it carries up to 15 passengers. I'll highlight a couple of things here. What you'll notice when you get an opportunity to look at this, and I'll talk about it in a second, but there's no seat belts, there's not a steering wheel, no pedals that you would see in other vehicles. And one thing about these vehicles, they follow a predetermined route. They'll react to other vehicles, pedestrians, objects at real time, and you may have saw in the video the sensors and whatnot that were out there. They're on the vehicle that detect those items. One question I always get asked is vehicles travel at about 15 miles per hour, so not blazing speed, but definitely moving. A couple of things else, a couple more items I want to touch on real quick here is, so the team is working diligently to identify some locations where we can take this out and give opportunity to do the evaluations I mentioned, as well as let the public be a part of getting on this shuttle, getting familiar with the technology. And one thing I'd like to mention is that this is a partnership I mentioned already with UTA and UDOT. I'd like to take a second real quick and just identify a couple of, I know we got a couple of UDOT members that are on that team. Blaine Leonard, I think he's in the audience, and Lisa Miller. Both have been very integral in this project and will be moving forward. So we're really excited with that. As with any project, I'm sure anybody will recognize that there are risks that you're aware of and some you're not aware of, and we try to mitigate those as much as possible. As far as deploying this, we do have some schedule changes that we're dealing with. Originally, you may have mentioned, you may remember we talked about having this available February 6th at the legislature for the Transit Day up there. We've got a little bit of a hiccup in that schedule with our working with Easy Mile. We also have to we're getting permission from NHTSA. I'm going to tell you, no, NHTSA is our National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Now, with the government shutdown, they are an unfortunate casualty of one that is not still up and running during the shutdown. So our final written approval to get the ability to take the shuttle out and put it on the roadway or use it on a private access has not come yet. That we've been given verbal approval, but you can imagine the position that Easy Mile's in and saying, yeah, we would rather have the written approval. That's a lot more comfortable to having that in place in order to operate that. So we're anxious for that shutdown to be behind us so we can get that approval and move forward with our deployment and get this out there for use and start evaluating it. Having said that, we...
Troy, there's a question.
Yes.
How many of these vehicles do we have?
We currently don't have any.
Okay, so this is concept.
One.
We'll...
Come on, Blaine.
Start with one.
We're going to have one, and I think Blaine can go over the schedule when we'll actually receive that.
Stick with scooters.
And that's going to go from here to St. George, so we have 3 commissioners picked up and delivered.
So we're leasing one vehicle for a year, and the vehicle we're leasing is actually the latest model.
And so it's on a ship from France, because it's manufactured in France. It will arrive in Los Angeles at the end of February, and then has to go through customs and get up here. For the dates we had originally picked for early in February, we were bringing an older model temporarily from their Denver office so we could use it for a couple of events and then ship it back. And given this lack of NHTSA approval, that may or may not happen in this time frame, but the vehicle we're leasing will be here from France the end of February. We're hoping by then we've got the approvals to deploy on some sites. UTA and UDOT have worked through some processes to try to understand what kind of sites meet those goals, and we've generally found those, we've identified those sites inside UTA's service area, which addresses your question about the original plan didn't have us going south. But we keep hearing that we need to be in south. So on our list is some consideration of how and when to go to St. George and do something down there. But none of our sites are approved yet. The NHTSA approval is site by site. And we have to evaluate the sites, map the sites, send a bunch of paperwork in, and then get approval. And so we have to kind of work through each of the sites, and we don't have approval for any sites yet.
But we'll be looking for an opportunity for the commissioners to experience this.
We are planning fairly early on in the process to get this at a location where you're holding a meeting and give you all a chance to experience the thrilling 15-mile-an-hour ride.
So maybe the April workshop, you know, around the complex area, we can find a way to do that.
Yes, Jason?
Chairman, so I understand while several folks were at the Washington D.C. TRB, they had this running. Was it Easy Mile?
No, I believe it was Navia, which is actually another French company. There's about 4 or 5 companies that do this.
So another company was there, and they were demoing this, and their handlers were walking alongside of it and would periodically jump in front of it to show that it would stop and not hit a pedestrian. So we're looking for volunteers to be that volunteer, jump in front. Commissioner Barlow, with all of his electrical experience, I'm sure would have complete faith in the sensors that it would work.
I was on that vehicle when the people jumped in front of it, and I think they worked for the company, and they kind of did it as a joke to bug the guy who was taking us around, because they didn't do it for every group that I watched. So we got to do the little jolt of them. It did stop very quickly, though.
I have a sponsorship from Siegfried and Jensen.
Okay. Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you. Any other questions that we can?
Oh, it's really exciting.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Okay, the dates to remember, for those of you who want to come to Sun St. George and get tan, Suntan is February 12th. I think they have the annual Transportation Expo. And also the commission meeting next month, it will be February 22nd in the UDOT complex. Anything else from Carlos?
Good.
Commissioners, anything? Well, then I need to have a motion to adjourn.
I can do that.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you for being here today, and see you next month.
Thanks for the good work out there.